carbon. It's helped build everything we have. But to keep moving forward, we need to leave carbon behind. At Standard Chartered, we believe money can be a force for good. So we're partnering with our clients to transition to clean energy where it's needed most. It's just one of the ways we're creating a brighter, carbon-free future. We're Standard Chartered, and we're here for good.
Digital revolution has changed the way we think. And in this era driven by information and technology, we at Daily Hunt are committed to our mission.
Daily Hunt was born with a mission to empower the next billion Indians to discover, consume, and socialize content which entertains and enriches them.
Since our inception, we have been pioneering the online news aggregation world. Started with 700 print partners, we have successfully moved to recommendation-based, hyper-local, deeply personalized, vernacular content. Powered by artificial intelligence and machine learning technology, we are making path-breaking innovations. We are persistently working towards multiple recommendation model and A-logs, which has helped us in delivering personalized content mixed with important and breaking news notifications. Our innovation and drive to deliver the best has consistently positioned us the #1 consumer app.
We're the #1 app on the App Store in the news category. We're ranked in terms of time spent the highest by both App Annie and by ComScore.
At Daily Hunt, we believe in creating opportunities. An opportunity where we are blessed to serve Bharat by delivering you unbiased news, unbiased views. Daily Hunt, India's most trusted news app.
There is a life designed for the kings. A life from the time we only know legends of. A time when palaces weren't built on reason, but sculpted on a whim. When luxury wasn't manufactured for the few, it was handcrafted for the one. A time when every inch was carved and sewn to unravel the senses. Hear suites of the world's most beautiful Maharanis and Maharajas tell untold tales of their life and time. Welcome to the living palaces of Taj. Welcome to luxury crafted by time. Wander through stories of love and valor and let your discerning mind sail across 4 centuries where a dinner seems to be slow cooked for hundreds of years. Let your soul be spellbound by spiritual days. Feast where praises echo effortlessly from one end to the other. Can you hear me over there? Your every moment is set in traditions as old as time. And many lifetimes seem to be rolled into this one. As your stay gracefully strolls along, you'll find that time has lost its effect on you. Yesterday is today, is tomorrow. The living palaces of Taj. Luxury crafted by time.
innovative and the most enterprising. India Global Forum is the agenda-setting platform. Visit www.indiaglobalforum.com.
Global Forum 2022. Can you hear me? Yes? All right. Welcome. Welcome to India Global Forum in Bengaluru. I'm Edie Lush.
And I am Laura Buckwell.
We will be your hosts for the next 2 days.
Yes, and over the next 2 days, of course, we are broadcasting to the world. So a big hello to our online audience that are also joining us here. If you'd like to continue the conversation as well while you're here, please do use our hashtag. It's just here on the back screen, IGF Summit.
We're here to explore and to shine a light on India's digital transformation. And we're also going to be looking at New India Inc.
We are indeed, and over the next 2 days, we're also going to be meeting entrepreneurs, business leaders, and senior government officials who are all driving positive change. The India Global Forum is where India meets the world and where the world meets India.
It is absolutely amazing to be here in Bengaluru. We're here broadcasting live from the verdant grounds of the Taj West End, and you can really see when you're here why Bengaluru is called the City of Gardens. It's also one of the world's mega cities, the second fastest growing city in India, City of Science, Silicon Valley of India as well.
It really is. It's also home to some of the largest headquarters for Indian tech companies, exactly from startups to unicorns.
There was one unicorn born in 2011, hard to imagine now, 11 in 2020, and last year over 40 unicorns born, taking the total in India to well over 90. And of course, it's not just unicorns. We've got minicorns, soonicorns, decacorns, and apparently hectacorns.
Well, you're going to definitely have to try and describe what those are a little later on, if you don't mind.
As soon as I find out.
Excellent. Well, in fact, one of our speakers, Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar, who we're also going to be hearing from a little later on, has actually, in fact, described the next 10 years as the decade of the New India Inc.
So to kick off, let's have up on stage the chief conspirator who made this event happen here in Bengaluru, Professor Manoj Ladwa, Chairman and CEO, India Inc. Group, and the founder of India Global Forum. Welcome. Right in here.
Do take a seat. There we have it.
The rose between two thorns.
The rose between two thorns. In this part of the world, they call it kebab mein haddi.
Excellent.
I'll explain that later on.
So yeah, it's a bit lost on us, sorry.
I look forward to it. Slightly worrying.
Well, let's get straight to it. Our theme in Dubai, we saw you in Dubai in December, just a couple of months ago. And the theme then was dynamic alliances. You've got London coming up in June, where you're going to be focusing on resilience, reinvention, and regrowth. Now, the theme this time, of course, is New India Inc. Tell us a little bit more about that, what it means to you, and also, especially when it comes to bridging this digital divide.
I think, firstly, look, it's great to be in Bengaluru. I haven't been here for several years, and as you've said, it's such an amazing city, and great to see so many familiar faces and new friends in this room, and I'm looking forward to meeting each and every one of you during the course of the next 2 days. Let me just firstly take a quick step back, or 5 decades back. I was born and brought up in the UK. The first time I came to India was when I was 11. And then after that, the next time was when I was 18. And after that, I've been coming pretty much several times a year, and sometimes 3 times, 4 times in a month now because of the work that I do. And people used to ask me, Manoj, especially in those days, that why are you so fascinated with India, especially coming from a family that had emigrated from India? And don't you sort of see the dirt and the muck, and there's so much corruption and all the rest of it? I used to say to them, every single time. Yes, I do see that. I'm not blind. I see all of that. But I also see change. And over the last 20-odd years, I've seen change after change after change. The only difference is that change and that change for better has only accelerated. And so the last 2 years made us, I think all of us in this room and everybody watching this, really reflect about who we are, what we believe in, and where we actually want to be. And that's where, Laura, I felt that, look, we've all been through a horrendous time with COVID. And India took a real brunt with the Delta wave. And that was the only major thing that you'd see on headlines. Do you remember that time?
I remember that time, yeah.
Thank God, we're able to meet in person, and most of us have taken off our masks, and we're vaccinated and so on. But there was another story that was emerging, and that's the story of the unicorns and the tremendous growth in entrepreneurship, in innovation. Many of them who have literally rags to riches stories. And India Global Forum is about telling that story, and we've been telling it to the world for several years. This is actually our first time doing an event here in India. So we felt we want to tell the story of the new India Inc. And what better place than Bengaluru?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
We're going to unpack all of that over the next couple of days, and India is set to achieve over 9% growth, I think, this year. We're going to speak to the Honorable Finance Minister tomorrow. The focus, as we've heard from her, from Prime Minister Modi, is on the next quarter century, getting India from 75 years of independence to 100. So what are we going to hear about in the next 2 days that's going to help us understand that more?
You always ask me this question. I don't know. We've got so many great speakers. We've got the Honourable Minister of State for External Affairs here, Meenakshi Lekhi. We've got so many friends. Umang's here, that you're going to hear. Prashant's here. So many friends that are here, Dr. Vijay Chotaiwala, who are actually going to, I think, unpick this and probably do it, or will do it much better than I. But actually what I'm looking forward to is hearing three things from every speaker. I'm really fascinated about the journey. So where have our speakers come from? What they're currently doing, because there's so much interesting stuff that they're doing. And then, what does the future hold? And what are the action points? How can people, there are participants at IGF or members of IGF, engage with our speakers, engage with our members, to take the next step. So I think it's a whole gamut of all of these different things, but for me it's always, IGF has always been about the story and let that story unfold. And what my team has been doing in the background is that we look at these as markers in the sand, and we run, I think, 14-odd boardroom initiatives on culture and diplomacy to electric vehicles. We've got one on global supply chains and skills and education a little later on today, and so on. And that's where the real action takes place, and that's where a lot of the policy interventions get sort of worked through and so on. So what you see here is going to be great fun, I think. We're going to have lots of food for thought, but IGF is also about what happens in the background and the networking, and we've got lots of that as well. Right answer?
I think that's okay. We'll check back with you later tomorrow and see if that was the right answer.
Now, you've had great support in the form of Umang Bedi, co-founder of Versi Innovation.
I did not say that.
I'm pretty sure you did earlier. So he's here with us today, and I'd very much like to bring him up on stage as well. Ladies and gentlemen, please, let's hear it for Umang Bedi, co-founder of Versi Innovation, which powers Daily, Hunt, and Josh.
Sorry, you could have dressed up.
I'm just amazed that, firstly, a big thank you for doing this in Bangalore, and we don't have to fly to London or Dubai. But how did you get a room full of people to dress up in formals with ties and jackets in Bangalore. I mean, that is an achievement by itself.
We're a British organization.
Clearly.
At birth, so.
Well, it's true. Everyone looks fantastic. Thank you so much to each and every one of you for joining us here today. So first up, I'd quite like your take on the theme of this year, the New India Inc. Tell us a little bit more about what that means to you.
You know, so maybe I'll start off by saying that I'll just echo what Manoj said. It's just great to see so many familiar faces. I've been on 4 Zooms with Dr. Vijay doing something similar in the past, and it's just great to be here and see so many friends and familiar faces. Really nice to see that Bangalore is the chosen city because it truly represents that India Inc. For me, I think the last 2 years has been significant because on one hand, we've had the most catastrophic human tragedy across mankind, right? But at the same time, the way India Inc. has progressed, the new India has emerged. I mean, if you think about, 2.5, 3 years ago when Prime Minister Modi called around, the clarion call of Atmanirbhar Bharat and being self-sufficient, I think it has given boon to some of the biggest tech companies and startups that were very small. Today, the fastest unicorn has been born in this city in 6 months, right? And when you think about that opportunity, even for us at Verse Innovation, our app is just one, Josh, which is actually born during the pandemic, is just one small contribution towards that digital India. But I think the new India Inc. is all about innovation and evolution. It's going to be deeply rooted in innovation, and I think about how human behavior has changed. My father is 78 years old. He would have never thought of ordering a cab or ordering groceries on an app. Today, that is life. So India's kind of moved from just consuming, YouTube and Netflix to really building out systems, whether it's gaming, entertainment, healthcare, financial services, digital inclusion, agri-tech. I think this whole transformation is what's going to drive the next phase of economic growth.
Fascinating to see. Speaking of unicorns, how many unicorns can we expect very quickly over the next couple of days to actually be here in person?
I gather about 30 odd of them are going to be galloping in over the next...
It's about a third of the unicorns in India.
Around 72 billion in valuation plus or minus, whatever that may be. But I just wanted to touch upon the point that Anuma made, is that innovation is at the core of what this new India Inc. is about. Before it used to be about begging, borrowing, occasionally stealing technologies. Today it is about creating real value and IP. And if you can innovate for 1 billion people, you can innovate for the world. And that's what India Global Forum's about. It's about that journey of taking India to the world and then making sure that we're able to create trusted bridges across sectors, across policy and politics and diplomacy as well. So that's where it is, and these are the guys that are making it all happen.
So Umang, bring us back from that grand statement about the world to Bengaluru. Why are you based here?
I mean, in India, if not Bengaluru, then where, right? Sorry about that for the folks
There
from
are
Delhi.
a few other places
I
you could
feel
be based.
bad for you, but nonetheless. But I think the reason is obvious, right? Our IP goes home every night and comes back, hopefully comes back the next morning, and that's people, right? And when you think about it, it starts with people. This is a city that is the hub of innovation right from yesteryear. So whether you look at ISRO being here, or IISc being here, or HAL being here, technology and science is very deeply rooted into the culture. The second reason is, you follow the money. When you think about it, in the last 2 years, 30 billion plus has been, been invested in India. More than 49% of which has actually come to Bengaluru, right? 41% of the new startups that are emerging come from this city. When you think about the environment and the professionalism, it's a very easygoing culture, very Silicon Valley-like vibe, but more than anything else, there is a lot of cutting-edge innovation here. Some of the best entrepreneurs, right, have moved bases from Bombay or Rajasthan for different companies and actually moved back. When you think of the statement that you made introducing the team, tech centers are here for global multinationals. I mean, IKEA just moved from NCR, sorry about that, back into Bengaluru, right? So when you think about it from a technology standpoint, from a skill standpoint, think about it, there are more than about 9 million people in Bengaluru. More than 7 million are employed in tech, one way or the other, right? 20 years ago, this was a city where people retired because this was the retirement capital of the world. But the kind of culture, the kind of innovation, the kind of skills, people, tech innovation that's coming out, startups being born, a culture of innovation, and 70% of the world's venture capital firms are based here. So when you add all that up, it is a great place to be.
Fantastic. Well, we will look forward to hearing more from both of you over the next 2 days, not only here on the stage, but also at the India Global Forum Media Studio. We'll be back in just a moment with our next session with the Honourable Minister for External Affairs for the Indian government, Meenakshi Lekhi. Stay with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have a shifting world order, and the world has really immeasurably changed in the last few years. The coronavirus pandemic, climate change, and now the fragility of peace. At the same time, we are seeing India actively working on foreign relations and diplomacy, in fact, more than it ever has before. Let's welcome now here with us live at India Global Forum Bengaluru, the Honourable Minister for External Affairs and Culture for the Indian government, Meenakshi Lekhi. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, Honourable Minister, thank you very much for coming. I want to jump straight into something that's on many people's minds, which is Ukraine. And I was so sorry to hear about the death of an Indian student who's in fact from the state of Karnataka, where we are now, killed in the shelling. I want you to tell me about Operation Ganga, first of all, getting the Indian students out of Ukraine.
So we are all very sorry for what happened to one of our own students, and I believe Minister Ms. Shobha Karanji visited the family yesterday to pay a visit to the family, and a young kid who wanted to be a doctor and start a clinic in his own village. That was the dream. So something which we as country obviously mourn. But Operation Ganga is something which I think in today's time and age, one of the largest operation which Government of India has taken over. We have, there are about close to 20,000 plus Indian nationals stuck in Ukraine. And above 10,000 people is who we have extracted out of the place, and we've brought them to Delhi. Or Bombay for that matter, to other parts of the country. The operation is still on, and many people have been evacuated and brought to 4 western neighbors of Ukraine, Poland, Romania, Moldova, and Hungary. These are a couple of countries where, or Slovakia also, Slovenia, where we are getting our people. And from there we are running various flights and measures to bring them back. 10, 12, 13, 15, that number of flights is what we are full of people, what we are bringing them back is the ratio, which is unlike anybody else, but then it's not to be compared with anybody else. It's, we feel our responsibility to reach out to our people who are stranded in need of the government support, and all our friends are helping us in evacuating our people. And that's what India is doing, and that's what I believe diplomacy stands for, that you get other people to understand your point of view and get them to assist you in what you wish to achieve. So what we wish to achieve is obviously extract our people from this place and from God's harm's place, and just get them out so that people in India are satisfied. So whether it was COVID or post-COVID or Afghanistan, we've been in the war zone all through, and pretty large numbers, and we've successfully executed some of the projects, and we are still working at this one.
You mentioned there that diplomacy is about getting other people to understand your point of view. It never used to be conducted on social media, diplomacy. So I wonder, especially in the light of the Russia-Ukraine war, how have you found this tool helps or provides more challenges as you respond to different global events?
Both are equally correct. So diplomacy in old times used to be something which you do behind the doors and in closed door arrangements. Today diplomacy is done amongst the people, in public, with the people. So we've used the forum to our advantage, because if government needs to issue advisories, we immediately put it out on the social media to reach it out to all the people who are stranded, to show them the way that this is what you need to do. People can reach out to us by various methodologies. I mean, I have not been responding, but taking action. So if somebody's tweeted to me that ma'am, we are here, we are there, my son is there, my daughter's there, please help, please reach out. So we do get those details, and we do put it in our system and speak to the people working here, wherever they are. If numbers are given, we reach out to them. But there's always a danger of fake news as well, because you don't know, they are coming from unverified accounts. A lot of time it's false propaganda. A lot of time you're working not on the real people, but on unreal people's issues. Sometimes the person's already been extracted out, but somebody's made that older thing viral. So all kinds of challenges, but that's why I said both things, it's a tool. It's a tool for good people, it's a tool for bad people, so it's a tool. No problem with the tool.
You've been a politician since 2014, and the theme of the panel is the changing face of global diplomacy. It's the third fastest growing economy. India is taking a larger place in the world. So how can India use its role on the global stage to positively influence events?
So I think the positivity of the whole thing is that we are basically very scientific people. Today it's been labeled as cultural heritage, but algorithms to trigonometry to geometry to the value of pi to the distance between Earth and the Moon and the Sun, all this has been done by this country. So that is the kind of heritage we possess, which obviously in yesteryears was science and technology, and all the massive buildings in terms of temples, etc., 1,000, 5,000 years old. The oldest man-made dock is in India. Very few people know that. And so that is the cultural aspect. But cultural aspect is not bereft of science and technology. So what people may call mythology, it may sound history to some, but I don't want to venture that path. All I'm saying is the science and technology itself has history. Mathematics itself has a history, and that history starts with India. And in a city of science and technology, I think it's time to celebrate the science and technology which India of yesteryear possessed, and is showcasing in the modern times through digitization and digitalization of processes. And no wonder Indians have done fairly well. I remember I was at Princeton in in some context, and I was having a conversation with some of the professors of law and others, and they were asking me about Aadhaar. And they said, how many cards have you made? So I said, we are a nation of 130 million, and more than 100 million we've done it. They said, what? I said, yeah, we have that platform, we've done it, and all our direct benefit transfers to the schemes of the government are reaching out to the people on their doorstep, and we are able to identify the beneficiaries. We are able to identify the disadvantaged section and are helping them out directly so that the resources don't get misused in the process of execution. They said only India can do it because nobody will have that kind of bandwidth to deal with these numbers. So from UPI to Aadhaar to Jan Dhan accounts, I think past 7 years personally for me, not because I'm part of the government, but seriously as an Indian, has made the change which I think I as a young person always wanted my country to see. And being part of that process itself is very, very empowering, and credit I must give to our Prime Minister for leading from the front and being very open when it comes to science and technology, to listening to new ideas, to implementing them, and I think that's what we all stand for. A lot of positivity. And that positivity is something which is infectious, and that infection should reach out to many people, unlike the other infection which reached out.
So it's International Women's Day tomorrow. This month, the entire month, is Women's History Month. As an MP, as a Supreme Court lawyer, you have stood up for the rights of women and girls in India. So what are you most focused on now with that regard?
So let me be honest and upright. Since you're a global forum and you are a global forum which is dealing with economics also, I must tell you that I started off as a tax lawyer and a criminal lawyer. So all the tax evasion matters where people could go to jail. But the women affair, I laughingly say any woman with head over her shoulder is a feminist, and most of us want our way in life, or get our way in life, or try to have our way in life, end up becoming feminists somewhere in some corner. So when my children were coming along, I was expecting, or they were young, very young, so I had a little time off. And then I started writing on these subjects. And my passion became my profession. There was a sudden change, which I never realized. More light got thrown on these subjects than the real work which I did otherwise. And that's how I kind of gained a little prominence because of these issues. But enjoyed every bit of it, continue to enjoy. But I also feel that there's a drawback in our systems across the globe, not just in India. And that is we start typecasting people. And that is also some kind of bias. And this year's theme is battling or fighting the bias. So the bias is that only women can stand for women's rights. That's a bias. I think we got where we got because there were men standing with us. I mean, I got where I got because in initial years it was my father, later it was my brother, when I got married it was my husband, now my children who are both boys. So I think a lot of men play a big role in the lives of women, and no woman can achieve what she wishes to unless men stand with her. And similarly, no men can do what they achieve unless women at the back end are supporting them. So for every person, whoever is an achiever, the other genders also played a big role in supporting that gender, and that's what fighting the bias is all about. That women need not stand alone when they are dealing with gender issues. Men have to co-opt and cooperate. And when we talk of economics, finance, defense, women can take a lead and men can be in supportive role as well.
Absolutely. So we're going to be joined in a few minutes by some other folks to talk about the changing face of global diplomacy. And we do see women lead sometimes differently to men. So I wonder, as you travel around, what do you see of this difference in women leadership?
So difference in women leadership can be, we can be more chatty. We can talk about things which may be very undiplomatic.
Like what?
We can talk about dresses, we can talk about bags, we can talk about children, shoes, children, fashion, colors, drapes. We can talk about multiple things, which is very hard to talk to men. And we don't have to be uptight all the time. We can be a bit easy and converse in a more easy manner. So there is a different format because gender has its own plus points. So being a woman helps many a times because I think diplomacy, I was speaking to some people earlier in the day, and I was making a point that diplomacy is also about relationships. And closer relationships you build in life, or you nurture in life, or you strengthen in life. And it doesn't have to be totally focused on give and take. It doesn't have to be totally focused on money. It's about building a relationship. It's emotional investment into relationship. So whether you meet a person for 20 years, 30 years, it doesn't matter. When you meet a person and you're totally clued on. And when people look at you, they have that faith and trust that, okay, he or she stands for the relationship. You are able to crack many things. I wouldn't call it a deal, but you're able to make a difference where a difference needs to be made. And I think men, with all their hard work and their capacity, end up messing up sometimes because they are at times not so good in keeping relations.
Well, let's leave it there.
They may not agree with me.
Well,
but I genuinely feel on the emotional front, the EQ level of women is a little more superior.
Nice. All right, we're going to quote you on that. Well, stay with us because we're going to continue diving into how global diplomacy is changing in the next panel. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think you got to stay.
I got to stay?
You get to stay. We'll invite our next panel to come up. Thank you. Great. Thank you very much for coming, everyone. So we're going to build on some of the insight from the Honourable Minister into this changing face of global diplomacy by welcoming here. With me on stage, we've got in charge Foreign Affairs Department for the BJP, Dr. Vijay Chowtaiwali. Nice to see you in person.
Nice to see you.
We've also got the Deputy Trade Commissioner, Investment for South Asia, and the British Deputy High Commissioner for Bengaluru, Anna Shotwell. Welcome.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your new job.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
We've also got the Consul General of Switzerland in Bengaluru, CEO Swissnex India, Jonas Brunswick. How are you?
Great to be here.
Wie geht's?
Alles gut, ja?
Okay. And the Trade and Investment Commissioner, Austrade Munish Sharma. Welcome. So, Dr. Chowtaiwali, you've joined us in London, in Dubai. You are regularly traveling the world as an Indian diplomat. So I'd love to know how perceptions of India are changing on the global diplomatic stage.
I think in the last 7 years, since Prime Minister Modi has taken over in 2014, first impression you get is that the value of Indian passport has gone up, not only in terms of the engagement, but also in the perception of the foreigners in all over the all parts of the world, and that I guess is the biggest achievement. We have done a lot of different things diplomatically, from rescuing operations which were very difficult and other countries also could not manage, like that of in Yemen, and now we are doing it in Ukraine. We have done a great humanitarian assistance development partnership program, and recently, in fact, Honorable Minister of State has inaugurated one exhibition of development partnership, and I little bit dug that data, and I found out that the development assistance which Modi government has given in last 7 years is almost equivalent to what we have given since our independence. And it's close to $50 billion on one side and $51 billion on the other side. So this is a massive engagement with the entire world. Our vaccine diplomacy, our yoga day. So in addition to hardcore diplomacy and the strategic initiatives what government has taken, all these efforts to bring a lot of partners with India for joint development or collaborative development has made India a country and a nation where we can trust and we can rely on in the difficult situation.
Interesting. Anna, I mentioned welcome because you're quite new to Bengaluru.
I am. This is my 3rd week.
Fantastic. How's it going?
It's lovely. Everyone's been very welcoming.
So you started your new post and came here from the UK's International Department of Trade. So how do you think trade is changing as a diplomatic tool?
Yeah, I think the role that I have been given really shows that, and the work that our Department for Trade, which is in its 5th year now, working really closely with the Foreign and Commonwealth Development Office and putting this role together shows how trade is so important to the relationship between the UK and India, and will be kind of one of the key priorities for me. We have been working with India on the free trade agreement. In fact, the 2nd round of negotiations are starting this morning in London time. And that will already, India is the second, the UK is the biggest second destination for investment, and we want to build on that with this new free trade agreement to build the value of the trade and investment between the two of us. But as I have my other hat on as the kind of Foreign Office side as well, I think the thing that for me, looking back over my career, that's really changed the face of diplomacy is kind of what people actually look like. I think when I joined, everyone was predominantly a man in senior in positions, and the Foreign Office has made a big push forward over the past few years in terms of getting some of our most senior ambassadors, so the US, the UN, Japan, France are all women, which is great. And so a big piece of the work that I'll be doing here in Bangalore, as well as my trade and investment, will be thinking about how we can work with India to make sure that women and girls have those opportunities, that empowerment to fight against violence against women and girls. And that's one of the things that we're working on as a whole network across India. In fact, a pledge for progress, where we're working with external organisations to bring that into their own internal work, to think about how they can kind of push down those barriers for all of the reasons you were saying earlier, about how we can make sure that we have a real diverse leadership of diplomacy.
I love the idea of global feminism, which is the idea that everyone can stand up for the rights of women and girls from less advantaged parts of the world, wherever they are. Jonas, you're focused on different issues, science, technology, and biodiversity, which is a really interesting example of the changing face of diplomacy. So give us a flavor of what that looks like. What are you working on at the moment?
Yes, so I run a very atypical type of consulate. I like to say we're a diplomatic anomaly, which is called Swissnex. We've been in Bengaluru since 2010, and it was established in the world in 2000 in Boston, and we only have 6 Swissnexes around the world, so we very carefully choose where to locate ourselves, and we go in the knowledge hubs, where science and technologies are driving forces of transformation. And so my mission here is not so much married to the trade and investment, but it's a little bit more upstream, the research and development space, which of course, as it moves downstream, has its commercial applications. So my mission is to think, how can Switzerland and India collaborate in education, research, and innovation to advance some of the pressing challenges that we face collectively? And I have arrived 6 months ago, and I'm now in the stages with my team to finalize the strategy of the 4 years where I'll get to lead our work. And biodiversity in the sustainability space is one area where we plan to be active over the next few years. India is home to about 10% of the world's biodiversity. I think this fact is way underappreciated outside of India, in the West in particular. We are in the middle of the 6th great extinction. Switzerland is home to a lot of renowned scientists and technologists in the biodiversity and remote sensing space. And so by bringing these communities together, trying to think how can we better manage habitats and ecosystem and integrate indigenous knowledge with frontier knowledge to slow down, in this case, something that is negative. In the health space, we're looking in particular at antimicrobial resistance. So again, a challenge that is not unique to Switzerland and India. It's a global one, but the 2 locations are uniquely positioned, again, because of the knowledge bases that they have, to collaborate, and by collaborating, accelerating some of the solutions that then, again, in the downstream could take the form of some therapeutics and startups that we'll see reach the market. But again, we're more upstream. And then lastly, we could not leave out digital transformation, an area where India is a world leader, and we come to India in the digital transformation space to learn from India, from the India Stack experience, Aadhaar, UPI, the digital space in Switzerland in terms of services and what is available to the citizen is quite lagging behind there. But then also thinking about digital transformation from another perspective. So this year we'll have a project on digital self-determination for people with disabilities. So what does it mean to create more agency in the digital realm for people who have disabilities, and particularly in the context of India? This is something that we'll be working on this year.
Thank you, Jonas. We'll come back to you in a moment. Manish, we live in a time when there's a real tension between creating economic growth at home while there's disenchantment with globalization, and we've seen that over the last couple of years. As a diplomat working on the free trade agreement between India and Australia, what's your approach to this?
That's a big question. So I think that's becoming a global reality even before the pandemic. We did our own study of where our next global trading partner is going to be. And if you look at our trading partners, we've had a very strong relationship with Japan, with China. We commissioned a report in 2018 looking into the future to 2035. And that report very clearly identified that India, there was no other market in the world that offered the growth potential that India offers to a country like Australia. So we created an India economic strategy, which India responded by creating an Australia economic strategy. So we've been working on this for quite some time, and we're very clear that the next decades or century friendship and economic partnership for us is with India. And what the pandemic has shown us, some issues around global supply chains, and the word that we had not looked at, diversification of markets. So a lot of our trade currently is with another billion people country, and when countries impose tariffs on our wine and barley, that creates a problem. So we are working very closely with India. In the middle of the pandemic, this is another sign of changing global diplomacy where prime ministers are now meeting. They had to travel across the world. Now they are meeting over WebEx. We signed a comprehensive strategic partnership agreement right in the middle of the first wave. We've got people now traveling. Our trade negotiators are traveling, and we're very hopeful for a early harvest agreement. And this agreement will actually help India's agenda of self-dependence, self-reliance, and because we've realized that for India to increase its manufacturing, it relies on certain critical minerals, critical technologies. And Australia has 10 of the 12 critical minerals that India is looking for in medical technologies and so many other areas, in cyber and space and everything. So we're very, very hopeful for the new agreement will actually contribute to India's agenda.
Thank you. Honourable Minister, do you want to respond to anything that you've heard, particularly in this aspect of trade for India?
So I would say these are changing times, from global trade agreement to regional trade agreements to bilateral trade agreements is the way forward as we see the change. And especially when I look at Australia, I feel we are supplementing and complementing each other, and diversification of not just the markets, but diversification of supply chain mechanisms and management is something which we all need to work at, because the kind of disruptions which are possible in recent past, we've seen it. And thus, in this diversification of supply chains, if 10 minerals we are able to procure from country A, and we are able to procure technology transfers from country B or the same country, we have the capacity and the manpower to put in that technology to good use and supply to them or to rest of the world together. So together it makes a business sense as well, along with the political and human sense, to diversify as much as possible, because the more unification happens, difficult it gets, especially when disruptions happen. So as much diversification as possible, and again, and usually no matter how the world sees it, but from a very close quarters, I say that democracies will always have prices to pay. And when democracies have to pay the price, then democracies also must work together to support each other so that we all can benefit our people from each other's technology, science and development.
So Anna, let's come back to you. Britain has obviously some history with India, changed over the years, but how is the engagement as a diplomat changing with the times? What are your priorities this year?
Yeah, I think the priorities, and it shows the change, is that it's not just about government to government and our ministers and our civil servants talking to each other. Last year, obviously because of the pandemic, we had a virtual summit between our two prime ministers, and we agreed the 2030 roadmap, and that covers the whole host of the relationship. So picking up on a few of the themes that we've heard, obviously health was a huge area, and the relationship between India and UK, particularly on vaccines, around the Serum Institute and Oxford University and AstraZeneca, and how we can further support that. There's pieces around net zero, obviously, after we hosted COP26 in Glasgow at the end of last year. British Investment International has combined $1 billion worth of investment to support India and the UK in meeting its net zero commitments. And then the people-to-people link is really important between the UK and India. We have over 1.6 million diaspora from India based around the UK, and so how we bring our two communities of people together through things like sport, which we've just been celebrating in the past couple of weeks, and the network. So yeah, it encompasses the whole of our relationship rather than just those kind of traditional government-to-government pieces, I think.
Vijay, you travel the world on the BJP's behalf. What are the main trends that you see have changed for you, and what makes an effective modern diplomat now?
No. First of all, I am not a diplomat, so but telling you in general, diplomacy has not remained confined to the diplomats alone, because diplomacy has become a multifaceted business, including engaging with the political parties, the media, even in the social media, the people, culture, etc. And I see the new age of diplomats are really doing it very well. I remember very recently on the Ukraine conflict, there was actually a Twitter fight between one of the diplomats of foreign country in India with one of the members of parliament, Indian member of parliament, which we would have never heard of a few years back. But she was saying something and he was countering, and it went on quite fiercely on Twitter. So this is the kind of new age diplomacy, and some people have adopted it very well. Our own Minister of External Affairs, our Prime Minister is doing it very well nowadays. The summits have been announced not by the issuing a press statement, but on Twitter. First time
social media is, you have to be good at social media
so
now to
good
be a
is
good
understatement. You have to be on the top of
okay.
social media. President Obama and Mr. Modi had announced their summit on Twitter at the same time of the day, even though the time difference was 10.5 hours. So
they pressed go at the
same time. So this is the new age diplomacy, I think, and everything affects everything else. You cannot compartmentalize it. That makes the job more interesting as well as more challenging.
Interesting. How has digitalization affected your role, Jonas?
That's a great question. In a great many ways. I mean, the pandemic has been the biggest disruption in the digital space since it exists, I would argue. I mean, I look particularly at higher education, and I think what happened in the last 2 years in higher ed as a result of the pandemic was the biggest shift in the last 7-8 decades. And of course, I mean, I'm in diplomacy and not in higher ed, but the repercussions are there too. Diplomats have to become conversational in a lot of the digital infrastructure that underpins the digital age. What do we mean by digital ledger technology? How does it work? What are the potentials of artificial intelligence? A shift that we've seen in Switzerland, we now have an ambassador for science diplomacy. We have an ambassador for digital transformation, both based within Switzerland. One to look externally in Geneva at the science diplomacy level, one to look internally within the minister at the digital transformation level. We've seen countries like Denmark institute tech ambassadors and place them in the Silicon Valley, and their job is to liaise with the Googles, the Facebooks, and the Apples of the world as if they were countries, because that's the importance that these tech companies now have in the world. So significant changes, and you either learn or you stay behind.
Yeah.
So Munish, does this pose a challenge or opportunity for you, or both? If you're trying to work on a trade agreement, you probably don't want everything being splashed on a daily basis over social media, right?
I don't think that's a good idea. Yeah, look, so I'm not sure what the question is. I think I totally agree with you.
Well, tell me how digitalization has changed your job, how social media has changed your job, for example.
I think it's a digitalization, talking about a trade agreement, or the two countries work on a number of forums, whether that's a cooperation on water or on critical minerals. It requires officials to communicate, and it requires ministers to communicate. Now, that used to take months and years to make. Now it takes months, sometimes weeks. And I've seen a huge shift in how these things come together rather quickly. And I've seen huge improvement on the Indian side and on the Australian side. We had not, I'm sure, we are in Bangalore. I think everyone knew Zoom before March 2020, but not a lot of people in my organization had heard about Zoom or WebEx. It's just the way we do things now. And quite frankly, our travel budgets have come down significantly. In fact, when we are projecting for the future, the finance department is just not giving us any money to travel. So I think everyone just presumes that it's all on WebEx and Zoom.
Interesting. Honourable Minister, tell me, what do you think the future of diplomacy is to you?
Future of diplomacy will continue as long as mankind continues, and challenges to it will also continue as long as national boundaries are there. But digitization, ease of communication, everything being out in the open has its advantages and disadvantages also, because as Manish was saying, that if FTA or some other agreement needs to be done and somebody hacks into it, or somebody gets to know before it is done, or somebody wants to create impediment into this not getting done, and Zoom calls, WebEx calls are very good, but what about cyber security? That many a times you have encrypted messaging to each other, and if decryption happens before you can encrypt it, or in the processes. So there are multiplicity of challenges. So it's not all hunky-dory with digitalization, let's be very happy about it. I mean, cybersecurity remains a challenge, data mining remains a challenge, data manipulation remains a challenge, using or misusing social media remains a challenge. So those are the sides of diplomacy which are a challenge, or these are the challenges to new phase of diplomacy. So when we have to meet the challenges, and when we talk about global order also needs to be ordered in cyberspace. And I think right-thinking countries, right-thinking policies need to be made on those fronts as well. And also, we talk of, all kinds of imperialization of forces which were physical in nature. Today, the cyberspace itself could have a similar kind of repercussions. So more democratization of the space needs to happen. More internet availability can lead to democratization, but a certain narrative building can also lead to undemocratization of democratic forces, or legitimate governments being challenged. So there are many aspects to it, and that will be the face of diplomacy, because these are the challenges which new age diplomats will have to meet. And this is how the countries need to converge their energies and their ethos and bring them all together to create a new cyberspace order for countries to operate safely in the cyberspace. And I think that's how I see the new age diplomacy. And when this was being discussed earlier on the panel about certain countries appointing cyber diplomats or ambassadors, I also met some of them, including one who was representing France and several other countries. So we've had a kind of interaction. Then EU had their own law, GDPR, and how GDPR needs to be taken forward, adopted, not adopted, the challenges it has continued to face. So there are many aspects, and since communication today is going to be digitalized, that space itself needs convergence of energies, and that's how I see the new diplomatic order. Because on one side we've had museum summit on the net on a web call, and on the other side less people are visiting museums where millions are invested. So I guess
lots of challenges,
all kinds of challenges, and that's where diplomacy will come to be tested in coming years, or coming forward, or going forward. We have to meet those challenges.
Thank you very much, Honourable
Thank you.
Minister. Thank you to Anna, to Munish, to Jonas, and to Vijay as well. And thank you to the audience for being here with us. Stay with us. We'll be back in just a moment after a short break with Laura Beckwell looking at government and governance. Thank you.
Carbon. It's helped build everything we have. But to keep moving forward, we need to leave carbon behind. At Standard Chartered, we believe money can be a force for good. So we're partnering with our clients to transition to clean energy where it's needed most. It's just one of the ways we're creating a brighter, carbon-free future. We're Standard Chartered, and we're here for good.
Digital revolution has changed the way we think. And in this era driven by information and technology, we at Delhi Hunt are committed to our mission.
Delhi Hunt was born with a mission to empower the next billion Indians to discover, consume, and socialize content which entertains and enriches them.
Since our inception, we have been pioneering the online news aggregation world. Started with 700 print partners. we have successfully moved to recommendation-based, hyper-local, deeply personalized, vernacular content. Powered by artificial intelligence and machine learning technology, we are making path-breaking innovations. We are persistently working towards multiple recommendation model and A-logs, which has helped us in delivering personalized content mixed with important and breaking news notifications. Our innovation and drive to deliver the best has consistently positioned us the #1 consumer app.
We're the #1 app on the App Store in the news category. We're ranked in terms of time spent the highest by both App Annie and by ComScore.
At Daily Hunt, we believe in creating opportunities. An opportunity where we are blessed to serve Bharat by delivering you unbiased news, unbiased views. Daily Hunt, India's most trusted news app.
There is a life designed for the kings. A life from the time we only know legends of. A time when palaces weren't built on reason, but sculpted on a whim. When luxury wasn't manufactured for the few, it was handcrafted for the one. A time when every inch was carved and sewn to unravel the senses. Hear suites of the world's most beautiful Maharanis and Maharajas tell untold tales of their life and time. Welcome to the living palaces of Taj. Welcome to luxury crafted by time. Wander through stories of love and valor and let your discerning mind sail across 4 centuries, where a dinner seems to be slow cooked for hundreds of years. Let your soul be spellbound by a spiritual days. Feast where praises echo effortlessly from one end to the other. Can you hear me over there? Your every moment is set in traditions as old as time. And many lifetimes seem to be rolled into this one. As your stay gracefully strolls along, you'll find that time has lost its effect on you. Here, yesterday is today, is tomorrow. The living palaces of Taj. Luxury crafted by time. There is a life designed for the kings. A life from the time we only know legends of. A time when palaces weren't built on reason, but sculpted on a whim. When luxury wasn't manufactured for the few, it was handcrafted for the one. A time when every inch was carved and sewn to unravel the senses. Hear suites of the world's most beautiful Maharanis and Maharajas tell untold tales of their life and time. Welcome to the living palaces of Taj. Welcome to luxury crafted by time. Wander through stories of love and valor and let your discerning mind sail across 4 centuries, where a dinner seems to be slow cooked for hundreds of years. Let your soul be spellbound by a spiritual days. Feast where praises echo effortlessly from one end to the other. Can you hear me over there? Your every moment is set in traditions as old as time. And many lifetimes seem to be rolled into this one. As your stay gracefully strolls along, you'll find that time has lost its effect on you. Here, yesterday is today, is tomorrow. The living palaces of Taj. Luxury crafted by time.
got your batteries.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you're all suitably refreshed. Had a nice break there. Well, welcome back. We're now going to take a look at the fast growth of New India Inc., which, of course, is highly underpinned by entrepreneurial activity and producing a record number of unicorns. In this exclusive session, we're going to take a look at how government can and is responding to the New India Inc. through policy, regulation, and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to welcome to the stage our first guest for this session. Please put your hands together for Hemang Jani, the Secretary of Capacity Building Commission at the Government of India.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
You try not to trip up off the furniture there. Anyway, how are we all doing? How is everything?
Well, thank you.
Good to be here.
Yes.
Excellent.
It's always a pleasure to be in Bangalore.
Yeah. Beautiful place. Absolutely stunning. Even though I've only just gone from the airport to here, but wonderful to look at. Hemang, you are the Secretary General, the Secretary of the Capacity Building Commission of the Government of India.
Yes.
How is your thinking on this area of government and governance changing? And what exactly is being done to respond to the needs of this New India Inc.?
So that's a very good question. We are sitting in the hub of technology in Bangalore. So I would like to take you back to the question of technology first and then come to the government and governance. I moved from Washington, D.C. last year around the same time to Delhi, and I wanted to buy a water purifier. And I was advised that you buy a water purifier with an app. So today, my water requirements and my water usage is available to me on my app on a daily and a weekly basis. If you go out and buy a car today, that car will have more of computing power than the first computer we all ever operated. So technology is just not an enabling layer now. You have to look at technology itself as a layer, technology itself as a delivery mechanism. And technology is the new humanity. In government and governance, we respond with the lens of humanities to every question. But today, we have to look at technologies as humanities. And without technology and answering the question on technology, we can't talk about government or governance. Let me now come to your question, how government is responding. Government is responding in both the short and with both the short and a long-term plan. In the short run, to engage with the industry, to engage with the startups, or we call them as unicorns, though I don't see any horns yet, but to engage with them, to embrace with them, to open the industries, to open the dialogue. For example, the drone policy, mapping. Mapping has opened up an industry which has already generated or unlocked the value to the tune of 5 to 7 billions. And government is hoping that by 2030, it will unlock a $50 billion industry. Similarly, drone. India wants to become a drone hub of the world by 2030. So in the short term, to engage with industry, to embrace the industry, but in the long term, and that is what my work is, and what we do at the Capacity Building Commission and what we think about, is how to build the technology nature in the all of government. There are 3.1 million civil servants in India. Now, if I were to think of one training to provide to all of civil servants, that would be only technology, technology, and technology. Even I would go to the tune of saying that your driver should know what is artificial intelligence, because soon the car that they will be driving will be powered by artificial intelligence. So without the knowledge of technology, now no government servant or civil servant can survive. And that is the long-term plan, that how do we create the enabling environment and how do we create the infrastructure so that all of government and all the civil servants who work with the startups, who work with the industry, can understand technology better and can appreciate the solutions that these startups and unicorns offer to the government. So these are some of the areas on which we are working. In our panel, we will have more discussion on the areas where government has made specific interventions in certain sectors, and of course, certain areas where government needs to know more and learn more and then take a long-term bet.
Because we are always learning, aren't we? Exactly. Well, it's going to be very interesting to hear what the private sector, what their take is on this, of course, as well. So very quickly, to join our panel, please give very warm welcome, joining us virtually, in fact, please give very warm welcome to Yashish Dahiya, who is the chairman and CEO of PB FinTech. A very warm welcome to Yashish. There he is. Very warm welcome.
Thank you.
How are you doing? So where are you? Where are you calling in from?
I'm in Delhi right now. I'm in Gurgaon. I was supposed to fly in, but I flew in today morning into Delhi at 4 o'clock. So there were some challenges. That's all.
Okay. Well, I'm very glad you're here to join our conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. Very much appreciated indeed. And also joining us, please put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, to Ashish Singhal, the co-founder and CEO of CoinSwitch. A very warm welcome. Please do take a seat. And also please do welcome Harsh Jain, the CEO and co-founder of Dream11 and Dream Sports. A very warm welcome. A very warm welcome to you. And our final guest is Jamin Shah, who is the co-chair of Hasacham Gujarat, which is the Associated Chambers of Commerce and Industry for India. Yes, a very warm welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Good stuff. What a fantastic panel we've got here. And yes, well, I'm hoping you all sort of were listening to what Hemang was talking about just then, because it's going to be very interesting to get your sort of take on the governance and government as well. How much attention have you had to pay towards government, and how exactly has it hindered your growth as well, Harsh?
Well, I think it's not really hindered our growth, to be fair. We've been here for about 14 years, and in spite of not having as much regulation as we'd like in the space, we have grown to about 14 crore, so 140 million users in India. But imagine that was without regulations. Now, the Supreme Court of India has ruled fantasy sports to be a complete game of skill, not related to gambling or betting in any way. That perception has gone. The other part is that the Honorable PM and the Honorable FM have said that for the first time, gaming is going to be embraced and that India can be a gaming superpower. And so now with the Ministry of IT as well saying that gaming will now be looked at as under the Intermediary Act at the center rather than the state level. If we could have gotten here and gotten to 140 million users without that, we're very excited to see what we can do with more regulation.
Indeed, and we're going to talk about the sector a little bit later on,
sure.
I'm hoping, anyway. Let's move over to Ashish, founder and CEO of CoinSwitch. Tell us about, what sort of attention you've had to pay towards governance and how that's hindered your growth recently.
So again, it hasn't hindered our growth, and like Harsh as well, we've been in the space for 5 years, have grown steadily, even though the clarity is coming in piecemeal, but it is definitely helping grow this industry. And we have to understand that innovation always needs to be ahead of regulation. Regulation need to follow, because we have to give enough growth for the innovation to happen. Crypto industry is just 10 years old, and it's we call it the new internet in the making. And that's why to regulate internet in the right way, which foster innovation, which takes user, innovators and the government together, would definitely need time. In the last 1.5 years of our launch in India, we've already grown to 16 million users, one of the fastest fintech company to grow this far, even with the uncertainty of crypto in the space, right? And in India. But we have seen that other countries have now started to adopt crypto, not just as a financial tool or a decentralized tool, but also as the new Web 3.0, where new companies which are not built with a centralized system, but built with community all around. Then, as a user, you're not just a user of that product, you're actually building that product together with the founders, right? And I think new set of such companies would propagate as more regulation clarity comes into space. Today, you see one of the highest set of unicorns in India. I would say it would multifold when the Web3 technology is regulated and is embraced in India itself.
That's a big statement. You heard it here first. There you go. Thank you so much. Moving over to our virtual speaker, Yashish Dahiya. What's your take on governance and how it's affected your business?
See, I think in a product like insurance, governance is extremely critical. And if you look over I believe over let's say a long term, ever since independence, a lot of our rule framing was based out of fears of misuse, of how somebody could misuse a particular loophole. And people used to spend an extraordinary amount of time, trying to plug those loopholes, and people used to spend an extraordinary amount of time trying to find those loopholes. I believe, as I see the last few years, and clearly I don't have any political affiliation here, but as I look at the last few years, what I see is boldness, which is, let's not throw the baby out with the bath water. Let's do something which is principles based, which makes sense. And, let's not have, essentially moving away from a rules based architecture to more of a principles based architecture. And I think it's an excellent move. And that is very much required because the country is changing. See, insurance, if you look at, it's a virtual product. There is nothing ever transacted physically. It is a promise to pay in case something goes wrong. So I believe it is a product where, internet obviously has a massive impact in terms of the delivery, in terms of the understanding of risk, in terms of, and the traceability improves multifold of everything, of a consumer declaration, of a consumer promise, of a claim tracking. Everything improves multifold in the digital world. And so I believe it takes a bit of time. And for a while, see, when you have, I was listening to, sir speaking about a policy for drones, a policy for perhaps the other gentleman mentioned maybe a policy for crypto. See, these are absolute sunrise sectors. So you can have the privilege of starting from scratch because there isn't, quite honestly, a policy before that. In a sector like insurance, we have to contend with an architecture which was built in 1932. Well before India became independence, and a bulk of our architecture is from 1932. And so, of course, changing that does not just take what I would say boldness and aspiration, it also takes decluttering the past. Because the past has been built on those hundreds of philosophies and those problems which people faced over the last almost 90 years. But the time has come to make that change, and I think very bold moves will be required there, there's no doubt. So that's kind of my take. I think sectors which have been regulated for long will require a little more effort in decluttering.
Thanks so much. Very quickly, just before we move over to Jamin, I'd like your response, if possible. Now that you've heard from the private sector, what is your sort of response to them? Are you encouraging to what they're saying?
No, it's very encouraging, and I think that's how all the policies will evolve when we sit together and work together. But I would like to take a cue from the last speaker on how do you unlearn the history of 90 years on a sector, and how do you learn new things, and how do you make the government quickly learn new things. At our commission, we like to use one analogy that everybody here are of my age, and you must have watched the movie Matrix. And in Matrix, when Trinity jumps to a helicopter, and she quickly dials in, saying that, hey, how do I operate this helicopter? And a course is thrown to her, and she knows how to operate that helicopter. So with the technology, government has to learn at the speed of light or at the speed of technology. And this is what I think we are looking at. And in fact, the technology itself is going to help us. We are working on a 24/7 digital platform, which will be available to every civil servant. So I think working together with private sector, learning from them, embracing them is the way forward, and that is the way things are also evolving in many of the sectors.
Excellent. Well, that nicely actually leads me over to Jamin now. Tell us a little bit more about how these new sectors sort of pop up, especially with different disruptors and innovation. How is that handled by the government? And what's your take on how the government, deals with the fast pace of these changes?
Yeah. What I'll also continue with what Hemang Bhai said, that government is currently like what Alvin Toffler said. If you are into 21st century and if you don't learn, unlearn or relearn, then you are illiterate. And same thing happens and applies to government. This government is also acting fast in terms of learning new technologies. Traditionally, we all know that government regulators, they are prescriptive as well as input-based, they derive those regulations. But nowadays, you can see that they are very collaborative and outcome-based, and that's how you can see PLIs and all other schemes propping up. Now, come back to your question about what kind of regulation to address new age tech. And we all know that new age tech, whether we define them into transportation or food or aviation, we don't know. And that's how government is also taking that clue. And that's how they are also coming out with a sandbox kind of environment. And that's how, take an example of Canada. They came out with Canada Security Association or Alliance, where they gave some kind of leeway to innovators to come out with their ideas, and also gave regulators a time to understand that idea, and then they came out with a regulation. So this kind of understanding, where government and new tech companies, they sit together and decide how collaboratively they can come out with a regulation.
Brilliant. And so is that quite a common scenario right now, or does it need sort of to be pushed more, do you think?
Yeah, and that's what's happening worldwide. Many countries, even India, is also adopting sandbox kind of environment in fintech sector. And that's what we can see from government's directives, that they want to understand how new age technology, how startups and unicorns, they are coming out with new ideas, so that they can not hold their growth, but they can be their partner into regulation, so that their interest, citizens' interest and national interest being taken care of.
Very well said. I'm very conscious of the time, because sadly we don't have much time. So why don't we give our audience your sort of key message when it comes to government and governance going forward, and what sort of collaboration would you like to see, all of you, going forward as well?
I think what we've seen in the last few years especially is that this government is willing to commit time, energy and deeper understanding of new disruptive sectors. And disruption, by its very definition, means that you usually have no prior history of regulation. And I think that's been a very nice thing for entrepreneurs to see, that we do get time now with the government. And what we'd like to see is exactly what's happened in the gaming front, for example, I can speak, is that this talk of banning things that are unknown, we're moving away from that. And I think, like Yashish mentioned, the government is enabling first principles thinking about, okay, we need to be ahead of the curve. India needs to be a superpower, which can come through disruption. We can build this $1 trillion digital economy, but not if we keep banning new disruptions. And so what we're seeing now, which we'd love to see going forward, is regulators. We would love to work with the government to regulate the sector, provide more taxation for the exchequer. For example, Fantasy Sports is providing now 3,000 crores of tax, we'll be providing 10,000 crores. And that's what we want to help. We want to help with skilled labor. And so I think the government is looking at it very positively, and I'd just say, do more.
Thank you so much. Hashish, your take on what you would like to see change?
I think what Harsh said equally, I would just add to that is, especially in the crypto space, what we are seeing is that it's not just an asset class in the making, it's the new internet in the making itself, right? And I might be far reaching here, and only time would tell how this plays out. But any Indian entrepreneur today starting a business online has to use Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Facebook of the world to launch his business and grow his business. 70% of our revenue goes to these infrastructure companies itself. So India has succeeded in services and now succeeding in products, but we haven't succeeded in building infrastructure. What Web 3.0 is providing us is a new set of area to build these infrastructures itself. Tomorrow's Microsoft, Google, Facebook could come from India and could be built on the blockchain and the crypto ecosystem itself. And that is why regulating this space, regulating in the correct way, not overpowering the kind of innovation that is happening, but working along with the users and innovators and creating set of pillars to let this industry grow and see the potential of it. We are definitely the believers in this space, so we would be on the one side cheering for it always. But there is definitely a caution needed as well, which I think government is taking the right steps toward. But there has to be a midway where both governments and innovators then can come together, create a space for innovation, as well as be cautious of user protection, making sure that that's your highest priority, but still giving you an ability to create something big, something dominating, not just say a unicorn building billions of dollars worth in India, but maybe creating global companies which are trillions of dollars of worth and creating infrastructure and becoming a net exporter of technology rather than importer of technology that we are today.
Very well said. I am sadly conscious of the time. Very, very quickly, over to Yashish. In just a couple of sentences, what would you like to see change?
I will say something controversial for a change. I think, when we built Policy Bazaar, we did not hire anybody from the insurance industry. There was a reason for that, because there was a way insurance was done, and we did not want any of that in our organization at all, despite the fact that knowledge is very, very important. So it's not because we don't understand the value of knowledge. I'm making a very critical point here. I think when you have to unlearn the last 90 years and learn for the next 9 years, let's say, I think that unlearning implies us saying we don't have knowledge. And government functions by definition tend to be ones which have a lot of knowledge, including regulators, including everything. So what I'm trying to say is a huge amount of change where people are brought in for who they are rather than the knowledge they have, for the ideas they have within government. And I would say, maybe it's a wrong word, but I would say a huge amount of shuffling, so that the people who get into government roles are not experts, but are the individuals who want to see the country change. I think that can be transformative, because, with experts, usually it becomes very difficult. I'd leave it there.
Thank you so much. We are going to have to hurry up, sadly. But I would really love to get your take as well, your final comments, Jamin, before we move over for your final comments from Hemang, your final words.
So, yes, regulation is required to protect, as I said earlier, but it has to be predictive. It has to be collaborative, and it has to be that regulation should provide a good environment for investor to invest and a country to prosper.
Very well said. Thank you so much. And final words, wrap our session up.
So, Honorable Prime Minister's vision of 5 trillion economy and ease of living in the New India Inc., as we call, is going to be the most important building block. So when next time, if somebody from New India Inc. comes and sits in front of government, they don't have to explain anything, and government can learn and be responsive. I think that is what we are moving towards, and that is what my wish, and of course, that is what my work is also. So that's what the last word.
Well, I can't thank you enough, gentlemen, for joining us for such a brilliant discussion. Thank you so much. I'm hoping our speakers will be around if you have any further questions. Let's hear it for our panel. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. That was great. both.
Carbon. It's helped build everything we have. But to keep moving forward, we need to leave carbon behind. At Standard Chartered, we believe money can be a force for good. So we're partnering with our clients to transition to clean energy where it's needed most. It's just one of the ways we're creating a brighter, carbon-free future. We're Standard Chartered, and we're here for good.
Up next, Mohandas Pai, Chairman, Manipal Global Education, dives deep into aspects of India's status as a startup nation and the roadmap for the ecosystem to thrive. Join India Global Forum Bengaluru, where New India meets the world and the world meets India.
Digital revolution has changed the way we think. And in this era driven by information and technology, we at Delhi Hunt are committed to our mission.
Delhi Hunt was born with a mission to empower the next billion Indians to discover, consume,
So I'm very excited for this next session where we're going to explore India as a breeding ground for startups, scale-ups, unicorns, and beyond. A few facts to get us started. After the US and China, India is the top startup ecosystem for value creation. Listen to this, 450 billion US dollars created, and now over 90 unicorns in India. So please do welcome my first guest for this panel. We have Bengaluru born and bred, Chairman of Aaron Capital and Chairman of Manipal Global Education, Mohandas Pai. Welcome.
Thank you.
Have a seat.
Thank you.
So tell me, first of all, you've described India as a startup nation. The internet is on a high growth trajectory. I think that's putting it pretty lightly, actually. The cost of data among the lowest in the world, half the population on the internet. So tell me what surprises you most.
What surprises me most is the extent of adoption of the internet and the digital world over the last 5 years. It has been an extraordinary journey. And I think no country in the world has done as much as India did. It started in 2015 when our Prime Minister, the Independence Day, spoke about the vision of a digital India, a startup India, and a stand-up India. I don't think many people in this country understood what his vision was, and you must give credit to him. And that led to a series of things that have led to India becoming a startup nation. And we had Jio come and change the entire world, entire country, whereby they gave unlimited data at 100 rupees, $1.5 a month. So everybody could afford it. And that is what surprised me, the extent where people adopted this. Then the government came out with public goods like Aadhaar. 1.2 billion people have a number. Happened in India, didn't happen in UK.
Yep.
And then we have about 1.1 billion mobile connection, happened in India. And then we also had 450 million accounts, bank accounts being opened. And the government is transferred $350 billion to people by DBT over the last 7 years and saved about maybe about $100 billion in money that was being, ill-spent or taken away by somebody else. So the extent of digital penetration of India has been an extraordinary story, and we living in this country ourselves are trying to come to grips with it. So what is going to happen in the future is going to be even more exciting.
You've pointed out that the internet and internet companies aren't necessarily all they're cracked up to be. Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Alphabet are now expansionist monopolies. So should India take a different path as it builds these startups to scale-ups and beyond, and as the tech universe becomes even more global?
To me, the biggest threat to humanity in this planet are these expansionist digital monopolies. They control the way we live our lives. Our data is there. They know exactly what you're going to eat later, what you're going to buy, where you're going to dress, where you live, and they can manipulate your thoughts.
Yep.
You can see in the big hack what they did, right? So that is the biggest danger. What the world needs today, the minister is here, a universal declaration of digital rights, like the universal declaration of human rights that we had in 1949. So for all the people on the planet, our digital rights are secure. What India needs to do is to make sure that all the data of Indians resides in India, not in a server in the United States where the NSA can snoop on us, and they're snooping on us. 2, our data should belong to Indians, so nobody can use our data without permission, they must pay us. And 3rd, we want our government to have sovereignty over our data, because the only people who protect us against big tech is our government. Twitter can turn you off, Google can shut you off, and everybody can do this. We've seen in this latest sanction how all these companies have joined the US to shut off Russia. Now, we need to have an international covenant that this cannot happen. Now, you happen to be on the right side of the war or whatever it is. There could be others who are independent like India. Now, just because we're independent, somebody wants to arm twist us, we should not be. So we are talking to government to make sure we create an ecosystem in this country which will secure some of the things that we have, because we have the tech, we have the capital, we have everything else. And China has done it very well. Communist, totalitarian regime, but they protected themselves. And India is a very large country, and India has to. I'm sure Europe will also look at it very differently now, especially after what has happened. I think they're the threat, and we must make sure we protect our data and do everything to secure. See, to me, it's a question of individual liberty. I don't want to be a widget or a piece of data on somebody's server in the US. I'm sure you don't like that.
Nope, don't like that either. Well, tell me, you mentioned there that a moment ago about the internet penetration. Now, part of this is what it means for e-commerce. E-commerce penetration in India is expected to grow at a faster rate than the US. What's the significance of that?
Well, the significance of that is very clear, that the platforms are going to have a unique selling ability for everybody, driven by capital. But we have a dark side. And the dark side is we have millions of people who are small shopkeepers. That's the only means of livelihood. We can't hurt them. Government has to protect them. Because, we are a society. A society is not a business. It consists of people. People have to earn their livelihood. They have got capital. They've got technology. Now, these are simple, unsophisticated folks who earn a decent living, a small living. We have to protect them. So India has to balance. And the balance can be by making sure they remain as platforms and don't hold the entire chain, which is the government of India's policy, so that we get the benefits of technology, lower cost, better supply chain. At the same time, the distribution points are with the local shops who also make a little bit of money. So I think India needs to balance it out. You've seen in the US what has happened. The mom and shops are gone. There are big companies doing everything. Nothing wrong with that. But the US earns $60,000. We just earn $2,200 a year. We are a poor country. We are a poor country. We have 1 billion people who live less than $1,000 a year. So we have to protect them. And that's why I commend the government for the e-commerce policy. We cannot be like the US. We have to open up, we have to invite them, they have to help, but it has to be people first. It cannot be technology first or big companies first, people first, because a society consists of people, and we have to take care of people.
I agree with that. Tell me about the unicorns. India's 93 and growing unicorns have created 300 billion US dollars. I mean, the numbers are staggering, right, in value. The current predictions are that there'll be over 200 unicorns in India by 2025, which is around the corner.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about that picture. I mean, it's kind of staggering, but put it into context for us.
Look, the West doesn't understand how big a country India is in technology. In IT services, we're going to export $170 billion this year. It is the largest export in the world. 60% of global outsourcing comes here. 5 million people are employed in the industry. And this year, we hired 500 to 600,000 people. In the next 2 years, we're going to hire 1.2 to 1.5 million people in technology. The largest hiring in technology is going to be in India. And they have changed the way things are. By 2025, we'll have more people in technology in the United States, which is number 1 today. Today, Bengaluru has 2.1 million people in technology, more than Silicon Valley. So it is large, but it's in services. Now, on top of services, we're getting the startups and everything else, and they're going to grow. So I think we'll cross the 200 unicorns, maybe go to 250, because we are seeing the momentum of capital coming in, capital being invested, and enormous innovation happening by people. You know, in our office, we get 500 to 600 startups visiting us, sending proposals to us every month for capital. Never seen this in my life. And the enormous upsurge of entrepreneurship, use of technology, because these are all bright people. In a country of 1.4 billion people, you will have every year 10 million people graduating from college, and of which 1 million are the top of the world, and they're doing very well. And people underestimate us because you go on the streets, it's not like the UK or not like the US. But the technology here, their strength, their ability to design and think is unbelievable talent. And I think this is going to be India's strength in future, the force multiplier. And lastly, we are the only country in the world which can provide human capital for technology for the West. Out of 6 million people in the US working in technology, 1 million are Indians there. Out of 5 million working in India, 2.5 million work for American companies. Out of 9 million working for American companies globally, 3.5 million are Indians. And in the next 2 years, maybe another 1 million will work for American companies. This is the source of human capital. And I think if India dries up, it's going to be tough for America. We have become the force multiplier for America, for the Googles, the Intels, and everybody else. We got 450 of the Fortune 500 companies having their labs and technology done in Bangalore.
So how can you export that knowledge elsewhere now?
Where?
Would you like to, where do you think that we could see India having more influence? We had a session a moment ago about global diplomacy. Obviously, technology has a huge role to play within diplomacy.
Let me tell you one thing. The US did a wonderful thing when they found East Germany and Russia winning all the Olympic awards. It seemed the president had a meeting and said, what should we do to beat them? They issued a visa to every sportsman around the world to come. Open up H1B for India to the US, and you open up in the UK. UK requires technology to be a dominant technology power in Europe, especially after Brexit. After Brexit, UK's future lies in technology. And innovation will not come from the people in the UK because it's too small. You need India as a force multiplier. Use India as a platform. And you will conquer the world. And you will be the next global hegemon like you were 200 years ago with Indian technology, hopefully Indian management too. I'm serious. Because I think this country has extraordinary people. See, China can be doing the same thing, but the Chinese are not attuned to an Anglo-Saxon work culture. We are very Anglo-Saxon business approach. And we should work together, sign an agreement, allow any Indian with technology or STEM to come to the UK and work in technology. 100,000 people come to the UK for 2 years. We'll transform the UK.
There you go. You heard it right there. Now, you mentioned investment as well, and besides the US, the international investment companies, part of building any ecosystem, I'm originally from the other Silicon Valley, the original Silicon Valley. Besides those companies, we also have Indian venture companies. And tell me about the importance of that and what that does.
We are open to global capital, 100% FDI in technology. In services, we have IBM, everybody here. Last year, we got about $42 billion of capital coming in. Sadly, only 10% is Indian, for two reasons. Our Indian capitalistic class is a rent-seeking class. They want to invest in real estate and some other legacy companies rather than become billionaires by joining all this. I think we'll have more billionaires from the tech industry next year than billionaires produced from all other industries, because these guys know how to raise capital. That's one. Second, our tax laws are very perverse. We are being Indians in our country, which I won't tell the Honorable Minister, we are taxed more than you as a foreign investor if you invest in a startup. We spoke to Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman today. I hope you raise it when she comes tomorrow. To have the same tax for India, poor Indians who live here, like you, a rich person from the UK investing, have the same tax. I think these are two things. We need more Indian capital to come.
All right, you mentioned billionaires, but let's look at the other end of the scale. How do you use technology how do you use Indian technology to bring the internet to the 50% of the world not yet on the internet?
Well, let me talk about 50% of India who are not there. We have 265 million children in school. Out of them, about 130 million study in government schools. We have to give a tablet with rich multimedia content from a Baiju or Unacademy to those 100 million people. It will cost us possibly about maybe 100 billion, I mean, not in 100, but 25, 30 billion dollars. And there's money in the Universal Service Obligation Fund. I hope Prime Minister Modi says that every kid in a government school in class 6 and above will be given a free tablet along with rich multimedia content, because we have wireless all over. And if we spend that kind of money in the next 2 years, which you can easily afford, India can afford it, we'll transform this country. Because once you get the children, next 50 years, they're all digital natives. And you'll be very surprised. Vasundhara Rajesh, former Chief Minister of Rajasthan, started a program by which she said all women above 50 in the villages will be given a smart device from Jio. She had 50,000 young girls go train them. No, these are traditional women who stay secluded, wear a gunga. These are very conservative people. They had this thing. They had the window to the world. So we can do it. We require Prime Minister Modi and Minister to take a decision. And tomorrow when Finance Minister comes, possibly you should tell her.
All right, a lot of calls to action there, so stay with us. Don't leave. I want to bring up a couple more companies now. So we're going to bring up the CEO of Unicoin, Satvik Vishwanath. Come on up. Also the CTO and co-founder of Bounce, Varun Agni. And then we've also got the CEO of Dukan, Sumit Shah. Come and join us. Welcome.
This will be a hard act to follow.
I know, we got to keep the energy up now. So Satvik, first of all, Unicoin has the mission of bringing Bitcoin to billions. Tell us, first of all, about that.
Yeah, so the first question is, what did Bitcoin bring to table, right? So it is just about fast and free payments from anywhere to anywhere in the world. This is the reason why Bitcoin even got invented. So something like Bitcoin is more like a novelty for developed countries. But for India, I think it is much more of the need. Because, yeah, it's like standard approach, I think. So one is obviously right now, we are more in the value accumulation stage where the price of the Bitcoin is going up because more and more people are believing this technology to be to continue becoming bigger and such. The second one is e-commerce. So today, the payment gateways charge up to 2% as transaction fees. And this can be avoided by using something like Bitcoin. And the third one is the gold kind of thing. So we call Bitcoin to be digital gold. And the amount of gold that Indian women own is more than what Feds have in reserve. So that is the kind of gold that we have in the country. And slowly, as we go forward, with digitization in place, people are believing that Bitcoin to be the digital gold, and they are looking this like, okay, this is one of the investments that they can do as a part of their portfolio and such. And next one I want to talk about is remittances. So India gets as much as $100 billion of remittances every year into the country, and about 10% of that becomes usually the transaction fees, because some of these money also goes to the remotest parts of India where the cost of making sure that money reaches there is higher. And this can be reduced significantly by using something like Bitcoin, where like one click and you just have the transfer from anywhere to anywhere in the world. It's just the information that is going from one place to one place. And finally, the banking the unbanked population. So right now, one of the biggest challenges that we have here is there are so much of remote places in the country where providing a banking support to them is a challenge, right? So there is even nationalized banks or the government banks don't want to go there because they won't be able to earn that branch's living by providing any kind of services in those kinds of remotest places of India. But on the other side, if you see, we have the fantastic smartphone which have the internet capability penetration already available, including like how Pai was saying. So it's about the geo coming in, and you have information availability everywhere. They have that window to how they have for any other news articles, etc. Similarly, they have it for doing any kind of transactions as well. And what Bitcoin can do, obviously, is store value, receive value, and send value, which exactly what something like the banks also do today, and they'll be able to get the advantage of this as well. So all of this combined, I believe we definitely have more than 1 billion of population within India who have a better prospect going forward by utilizing Bitcoin as a mode of asset/payment.
So a lot of what you're talking about is inclusion, right? And it's a very similar theme. But Varun, I'd love you to tell us about inclusion and e-scooters, because we're in a place where frankly, the traffic is worse than the Silicon Valley that I'm originally from. Electric scooters have a role to play. Tell me a little bit about that. Sorry, this way.
So a major event, so electric vehicles have their own advantages. They are clearly the cleanest to run, the lowest cost to operate. And until now, the inflection point had not reached because the upfront cost of an electric vehicle was too high for the consumers to adopt. And some of the major steps that have been taken by the Indian government is to reduce that upfront cost. So there's the FAME 2 regulation has brought in a lot of incentives and to make the green to make the green electric scooter more palatable for the Indian consumer. And this really has really changed the landscape for us. With Bounce, before COVID, we were operating a fleet of around 30,000 scooters, and it was all on petrol. And we were experimenting with electric vehicles, but the adoption was not that great. Before this, and there were no there were not large players in producing these vehicles either. So, but what we've seen is since the FAME 2 regulation has come up, we have seen a large movement towards the adoption of electric vehicles, and a lot of people have started manufacturing, and we have seen that we can actually go towards it, and we have converted the entire Bounce fleet from petrol to electric vehicles. And we've been providing the dockless mobility solution for the last 4 years, and what we have learned is that Indian roads are very different. The kind of electric vehicles that have to really ply on the Indian roads are not what have been traditionally sold. And we believe that there is a huge value unlocking to happen when someone designs the vehicle for the Indian roads. And that's what we've been doing. And a lot of other companies also have been looking into this space. And the other major hurdle to adopting electric vehicles is the range anxiety. We have a lot of electric vehicles running now, but none of them have the swappable battery technology.
Right.
And what swappable battery technology offers is infinite range. And this is one of the biggest concern for people who are not necessarily willing to adopt to electric vehicles, because you don't want to be in a position when you run out of battery and there is no fuel, you can just fill up and go. So, but swappable battery does offer that, and this is something that we are seeing as an inflection point where adoption of electric vehicle increases further because of this technology coming in. And we are seeing that with Bounce Infinity's launch, we are seeing that people are very, very excited about this.
Interesting. So we have that idea of inclusion continuing the thread. So just to come to Sumit, there's lots of e-commerce platforms. We heard from Mohandas about the importance of encouraging and supporting small vendors. Tell me about yours and what it does.
Right, perfect. So, like the company started during the peak of lockdown, right? Like there was a peak lockdown, all the stores were shut and all. So I personally try to set up my store using mobile phone because that's what Indian businesses use. So although there are platforms like Shopify and all that, but you need certain level of knowledge, like what is domain and what is hosting, you know, those kind of things, which these businesses won't understand ever. For instance, one of the user called me and he's saying like, your app is not working. It's like, the button was add to cart. People don't even know what is the meaning of add to cart. That is the TG that we are building for. Now, what is the difference between us versus Shopify? The first mobile first approach that I told you. Second is, of course, the price point. Like as you know, like all these businesses are struggling to even exist today. These kind of people cannot afford, you know, $49, $99 kind of fees. So that's the exact audience that we are building for. The different thing that we have done is we understand how the businesses operate on ground in India. So what Shopify has done in terms of, you know, number of sellers acquisition in like last 15 years, we have done within like 12 months.
Wow.
Like our platform is being used by like more than 5 million sellers across India. So that's the scale that we are talking about here.
So I want to compare this Silicon Valley to the one that I'm from. And I'm too young to be a hippie, but there has been discussion in the Bay Area where I'm from that part of the reason of the success of the Bay Area, of Silicon Valley, is because that open-minded culture that was created from the hippies and beyond embraced the open source movement, the sharing of our ideas. So if Silicon Valley in California has the hippies, what does Bengaluru have?
Open source in everything in which you live. See, what we need to understand is our culture. Our culture is open source. Because in our culture, there is no dogma. We don't have to obey one law, one religion, blah, blah, blah. He can do what he wants, he can do what he wants, I do what I want, she do what she wants, Meena, she does whatever she wants in Delhi. And we all part of the same community. So we have utmost freedom, we have no dogma, no set of rigid rules to hold us. So we are free thinkers. By nature, we are free thinkers. In the US, you require the hippies to break away from the stranglehold of the World War II post-war crowd, which used to send young people to go fight a war, while the old people stayed back and had a great time writing peace treaties, right? I mean, you know, 60 million people died in the war, right? And so the hippies came as a revolutionary counterculture. Now, our counterculture is so widespread. I'm being honest with you, because that is the reason why innovation, jugaad, everything will flourish in this country. Because you need an open culture which is not rigid, which is not fixed. And we have open source. And he's doing open source, he's doing open source, they're doing open source. And the biggest threat to a Microsoft or a Oracle, everything, is going to be the regime here. If you look at, open source technology, one of the largest adopters are Indians. Right?
Yeah, sure.
Why is that? Because, you know, they think open source.
Sunit, did you want to add something?
I think like the Bengaluru does have hippies who can code, which and they're like much cheaper as compared to Valley. Like that's the or like the companies like Freshworks who put India on like global map. Why that was possible? Because like we are building tech in India. Our costs are like already 1/10 of the world. So yeah, I think Bengaluru has hippies who can code much better than Valley code.
A lot of startup founders in Silicon Valley say that like because you're in India, it's a crime. Like I'm asking like what? Because of the cost that we will be able to hire engineers here to do something which is like at 1/10, and that gives us usually at least 4 times more runway for a particular amount of money.
How long will that last, do you think? How long do you think that cost differential will last?
I think because of the population that we have here and the cost of education, cost of living, I mean, I'll definitely foresee that to last for more than a decade.
Plus new batches coming like every single year.
Yeah.
And let's not forget the filter coffee. That opens up mind too.
The what does?
The filter coffee.
You know, I want to make a statement here. If you look at the gig workers in India, enormous number. You see, for the last 15 years, we had a large number of women enter the technology force. They are 40% of the population in technology. So many of them are left for family reasons. Now, because of the gig platform, they're all coming back to work. So the market is expanding exponentially. And I don't share his optimism about cost, because I think by 2025, we'll have all the people here, 2 million people being hired in technology and startups every single year. And that is a bit of a stretch. So then we're going to charge the world more for our services.
Okay.
Yeah, that is true on one side, but on the other side, like you said, these developed countries are not open to taking up Indians as many of them are willing to go, which means there are only like a very small portion of Indians who can actually go and settle there. And for the remaining, it's still what matters is what is India paying them, right? So
Let
they
me
cannot
give some
compare with
data.
the salaries of US.
Let me give some data. In IITs, about 15 years ago, 70% went abroad for masters and stayed back. That's why Satya Nadella and all those great guys. But today, only 10% is going overseas. They're all starting the startups.
Yeah.
They're not going overseas because life in India is extremely comfortable. If you earn $50,000 in India, you have a big bungalow, a car, 3 people working for you. Your wife is happy if you're married because she's got a car, everything.
Or your husband's happy.
Husband is happy, exactly. Husband is happy. So
Happy
everybody is
International
happy.
Women's Day.
No, we got to be, yes. I mean, Meenakshi is here. Sorry, Meenakshi. She'll bash me up.
Tell me about how easy it is to start a business. Just on that point, we've got the Honourable Minister here. Sadly, she doesn't have a mic. She can't respond to anything that's being said. But what would you like to see even better?
So one thing is for certain, like when we have the culture of failing fast and failing quick, failing cheap, and that has really been easy here in India. We've tried, but like we get opportunities, and it's very easy to start something new. And try it out. You quickly find out whether there's a product market fit or not, and again try either double down on it or try again. So I guess this is great about Bangalore, and we definitely should be encouraging more of this. And I think cost of starting a company or even just starting a firm is pretty low enough. And what would definitely help more is if we can incentivize that even further.
Incentivize it even further by how?
One is definitely have a kit. So a lot of accelerators are around. I think increasing them would open up the access to a more number of startups to actually take this first step. Because when you have a little bit of confidence that there is some validation to the idea, you'll start seeing a lot more people be more brave about it.
Okay, so we've got an idea for more support for accelerators. What about down there? What could be even better?
So I think one of the big challenges that we face within India, even though it's very easy to start a startup in India, because there's like 3 founders and one being in business, another being in marketing, and one being tech. Like there's a good team to start up from the next day itself because of taking some idea. But what makes it more difficult going forward is because if that particular industry is not fully regulated, right? And
like which industries?
Like crypto industry, like
okay.
us, right? So then there is like in every single step, you have questions you don't have the answers for. You have to do your best judgment, and you have to keep going forward and face it when the issue comes up. And I understand that obviously like technology comes first, then comes the adoption, and then comes the problems, and then comes the regulation. The regulation comes so that the problems won't happen. But at the same time, we as the startup founders as well need enough support from the government to hear what exactly we are trying to say, why we believe what we believe in, so that there is a healthy conversation ongoing. And then obviously there are some problems for which the regulation should obviously be done. So
Do you feel like you have enough of a conversation going on regulation on crypto within India?
Yeah. I mean, within last 2 years, yeah, that has been good. But we are in business since like 8 years. So the first 6 years have been comparatively challenging. But in the last 2 years, I would say, yeah, it has been quite good.
How much of what you're involved in has to... How much of what you're involved in, Mohan, has to do with crypto or blockchain?
Well, I'm involved in the technology part of it, not in the business part of it, because to me the technology is exciting, and we are seeing adoption of blockchain technology in banking, in trade, in external, what do you call it, external trade and other areas, which is very exciting. They're doing the crypto, but the blockchain underlying technology is spreading widely in this country, which is very good.
So tell me, I'd love to hear some perspectives on what you think about Indian venture capital. Is it any different than what we've seen coming from Western parts?
I think like the Western capital is pretty much acceptable or like approved from the founders which are at Series A, Series B kind of stage. Because again, like not everybody wants to build like $1 billion of company. The problem with Indian venture capital that I see is more dilutions and the kind of ownership that they expect. Now, since the foreign capital has started coming in countries like India, I think the competition among VCs themselves has raised to crazy level, which is beneficial for us as a founders, because we don't care about like what is the color of money. Like ultimately what we care about is what problem that I'm solving, how big is the market, whether people will pay for it or no, and I think that's what should matter for like anybody who's starting the business.
Do you agree?
No, I agree, because for us, the most important thing when we invest is we don't want founders to become employees. We don't want them dilute too much. You're investing in a startup because of the founders who are extraordinary entrepreneurs. We don't want them to dilute so much they become entrepreneurs. Then they ask the question, why am I working? For whom am I working? That's why he should have a 50-60% stake, he should have a 70% stake, he should have 50% stake when they become multi-unicorn status, 5 billion, 10 billion. So they all become billionaires and laugh all the way to the bank, and we make money along with them. So, Indians try to squeeze them. Now they're not, because they try to bargain, that. And now with the foreign capital coming in, it's slightly become much better. But if you're a smart VC, you make sure that you don't dilute the founders too much, take them on your side, because you're going on their backs to make money.
Right. What do you think the main challenges, the main roadblocks are to you becoming a hectacorn, for example?
Well, some of the things that, especially in the electric world, there is a good amount of headway made in domestic markets to bring the supply chain to India, but there is still a lot of dependency on external world and China especially for a lot of components.
For which parts?
Cells. The lithium-ion cells is something that we are very dependent on China for. Battery packs get manufactured here. We are doing that here. But the cells themselves, they come from China. There are the motors. There are the permanent magnets in the motors. There are rare earth metals. You don't get them anywhere. There is definitely a dependency on supply chain from that. And we definitely have to up our game in terms of research and development and get a lot of the supply chain into India, make it more indigenous. But also just try to see if there's definitely going to be some material which we just cannot source in India. What we should do is a lot of research and development in finding alternative materials and getting that manufactured and made right here in India. That's just from electric vehicle perspective. I'm certainly, I'm fairly certain that there are definitely a lot of things that we can do to unblock the Indian startup potential and reach out to the global markets as well. I'm sure the rest of them have comments on that.
Main roadblock? Sumit?
For us,
yeah.
I don't think so. Like there is a roadblock. It's just about how quickly we can accelerate, and you always have like more expectations from every single thing that you're doing.
Yeah, I think the biggest roadblock for our industry within India is the understanding of the government about the industry. Recently, our finance minister announced about the new taxation just for the crypto industry, where they want 30% straight, which is like gambling or betting kind of industries. And they are not getting that the blockchain technology and crypto industry as well need smartness, and they need to use their intelligence sometimes all time of the day, because crypto is like 24/7, so that they'll be able to make some money out of it. So that is on one side. But I believe the first thing we have to change is their view, that they obviously should see this as one of the many other speculative industries similar to equity or mutual funds or futures and derivatives market, and give the similar kind of importance for us as well. So the present taxation actually means that, let's say you only make 10,000 rupees in a particular year and you have no other income at all, even then you won't fall under the taxation slab. You still have to pay the straight 30%, which is very bad for an average Indian, because only like 3% of the Indians fall under the 30% slab, and for everyone else, government just wants to make more money because they think that crypto is easy money.
All right, Mohannes wants the last word. You've got less than a minute.
Because of all this, we have sent one of Bangaluru's greatest entrepreneurs to Delhi to educate New Delhi how to make regulations better, Mr. Rajiv Chandrasekhar.
All right. Well, with that, I'd like to thank you all for joining this highly energetic panel. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Stay with us. We'll be back in just a moment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
o'clock, it's time now to take a deeper look into our event theme on how the New India Inc. is helping India carve out a new narrative on the global stage. It's a great pleasure to welcome our next special guest, who in fact started his own journey in Silicon Valley. During his time as an entrepreneur, he built India's cellular sector from scratch and was amongst one of the first unicorns in technology, even before the term unicorn even came about. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great privilege and an honor to welcome to the stage Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar, Minister of State for Skill Development, Entrepreneurship, Electronics and IT for the Government of India. Minister Rajiv, here we are again.
Yes.
On the stage together. We're sharing the stage together again. For those of you that didn't know or didn't see, yes, we shared the stage back in Dubai in December. And we spoke very much about sort of upskilling and reskilling the workforce and the $1 trillion technology economy vision that you have as well. Just sticking with that theme as well, just going forward. Because it's International Women's Day tomorrow, I thought we'd maybe tie those two themes in.
Okay.
So what's your sort of message for the women in the audience today when it comes to upskilling and reskilling that sector and how sort of important they are for the economy going forward? What would you say?
This was a bit of an ambush, but I didn't come prepared for this. I was all ready to speak about New India, but since you've asked me that question, look, I think the last 2 years of COVID have demonstrated a kind of resilience amongst Indians that was A, unprecedented, and B, it has in a sense reset our own expectations of ourselves. And it is quite clear today that be it women or men, and since you've asked the question about women, that it is almost like there is a move or a mood that makes the women believe that they can do anything. And I use this example to demonstrate what the underlying changes that are going on in people's own ambitions and how they see their future. In the skilling ecosystem, there is a small piece called the plumbing skilling ecosystem. And conventional wisdom has it that plumbers are all men. And we've seen during COVID uptick in the number of women going into the plumbing skills ecosystem, seeking skills in plumbing. And so a little bit of a dive into that to understand what was going on threw up this very interesting phenomenon that women believe that they can be plumbing sales supervisors and plumbing service supervisors. So I believe what is happening today is that the ecosystem has been built over the last 4 or 5 years that presents to man or women multiple opportunities to skill themselves, upskill themselves, and reskill themselves. And women who believed before COVID that they were going to only pursue, let's say, A, B, C skills, now are looking at completely all of the options on the table, and they believe they can pursue anything. So we are encouraging that. And particular parts of the skilling network called the JSS, which is targeted only at women, we are doubling the size of it. And we expect to reach more women with skills that are digital skills, skills in the digital ecosystem, giving them digital skills in whatever else that they try and attempt. So I think there is a sense of confidence and a sense of aspiration that has come post-COVID that is allowing women, that is empowering women to pursue pretty much all of these skilling opportunities that we have built over the last 5 years.
Thank you so much. And I do apologize about the ambush, but that was very well said indeed. Thank you so much. I'm sure a lot of the women here do appreciate that as well. So let's move on to the New India Inc. Tell us your take on that and what's it going to take to make the New India Inc. thrive going forward, do you think?
Look, and I think I touched on this when we last spoke in Dubai. I think one of the things that people may have picked up or may not have picked up is that as we celebrate this new phenomenon of entrepreneurship and this startup ecosystem of this scale and size and magnitude, it is important to understand the journey that has brought us here. And it is really the last 5 years of these real tremendous tectonic changes in the overall economic ecosystem that is causing, I heard the young entrepreneurs here sit and talk about their future, that they can take their dreams and opportunities and make them real. I come from a time where I thought I was a smart aleck entrepreneur some years ago, some decades ago. And I can assure you that the system was stacked against you. And in 2012, I raised in Parliament a question about how come 2012 was just 1 decade ago, 10 years ago, how come 97% of the banking system of India, its net worth was concentrated in loans to 9 families. That was the India then, where there was a concentration of capital, there was a concentration of opportunities. These opportunities and capitals were available to very few percentage of Indians. And now we have, over the last 7 years, completely restructured and changed the financial system, where a young entrepreneur, whether he's from Bengaluru or Hyderabad or wherever, is able to take his dream, raise the capital, go out there and build a business, not worry about a big Indian company or another company muscling him out or her out. And so this is a dramatic transformation that has happened, not in a dramatic instant, but over the last 7 years. And that is the new India that we are today celebrating. And that is the new India that we want to now further accelerate, expand, and grow. And so qualitatively, quantitatively, the economic landscape that we see today in 2022 that helped us during the last 2 years of COVID be so resilient and fight this pandemic has not happened through any miracle. It has happened through a lot of hard work by our Prime Minister and the government. And I'm glad today that people are celebrating India as this fastest growing startup innovation ecosystem. And I think in a lot of ways, it is reimagining India's future and resetting our goals and ambitions for the next 10 years.
I do have a couple more questions for you when our other guests are going to join us, but we're going to throw out to our audience. Our audience now, I'm going to give you guys a voice. We have 2 questions from our audience. Do we have any questions? We have time for just 2. For the Minister, this is your very unique time to ask a question, if we have any. Do we have any questions? Yes, we have a lady just here in the front. Tell us who you are and where you're from, and your question, please.
Hi, I'm Anjali Saini. I'm from Bangalore, also from Silicon Valley, and also work in a software company. We have a software company that has a product, intellectual property. And I want to ask the Minister one thing, because he is from Bangalore, is can we have more investment in the Bangalore infrastructure? As you saw, the host took like 2 hours to get from the airport to here. As entrepreneurs and as business people in Bangalore, we are really losing a lot of money and a lot of time, and I think it impacts the revenue to the government also. I think if we can improve the infrastructure in Bangalore, it would help business accelerate even faster. So I'd like to ask you what you can do for us.
Now look, so I don't know how long you've been in Bangalore. I'm assuming you've been here for a while.
15 years.
Okay, so I've been here a little longer than you, and if you've followed the work of a lot of us in Bangalore, we have struggled with this issue for many years. And part of the problem has been there hasn't been a consensus in civil society about what good governance in a city should look like. So there has been arguments that it's all about great roads, and you forget about the fact that we don't have sewage infrastructure or solid waste management. So there has been this discourse. People are frustrated. People have been different types of opinions on this. But here is what I believe where we are today. Given this huge piece of the economy that now is real and was a dream, let's say, a few years ago, which is the startups and the innovation ecosystem. In my opinion, and I'm not Chief Minister of Bengaluru, I'm not Chief Minister of Karnataka, but I believe I have some clout there, that if the standard of living or the quality of a city does not attract an entrepreneur, does not attract an innovation ecosystem, and does not sustain it, that ecosystem will flee. And there are countries like Dubai and Singapore who are just waiting with a little fishing rod with a dangle bait that are out there to attract our talent and our youngsters. So I think it is now less of an academic discourse on what is good governance and should we have good roads and should we have solid waste management, and now becoming a strategic imperative for India, for Karnataka, for Bengaluru, for Hyderabad, that if you want to remain competitive and if you want to retain our talent and continue to attract investments and create jobs and all of the other all of the other things that come from this, we will have to do better in terms of managing our city. So I'm hopeful. We have a new chief minister. He has announced $1.5 billion of investment in Bengaluru. He has a great vision. He's known for his governance. He's known for institution building. And I am very hopeful that over the next few years, we will see a Bengaluru that we deserve and that we knew.
Thank you so much. Good question there as well. Thank you. We'd have time for one more question. I think we're going to go over here to this gentleman just to the front.
Good evening. My name is Vignesh and I'm from Chennai. I own a business in construction material. But since I'm in contact with all my colleges and where I studied, what majority concern is that people of my age want to start something new. Everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. But the major hurdle comes in is where they have a question in mind, what to start. And if I want to start something, where to look? So this is the question I want to ask.
I don't think that is the job of a government, is to encourage those who want to be entrepreneurs, create an enabling ecosystem to allow entrepreneurs to be successful. Now, I don't think it's really in the scheme of things anywhere in the world that we catch hold of young people and say, this is what you ought to do. Yes, we'll hold your hand while you do it. I don't think that's what entrepreneurship is about. I think it is about finding out what you're passionate about, identifying it, creating a broad business model around it, and then pursuing it. I draw the distinction between wanting to be an entrepreneur, which is like a fashionable thing to do now, amongst kids especially. I have a son who's 21 years old, and when I ask him what does he want to do, he says, I want to be an entrepreneur. And if you have a follow-up question about what entrepreneurship do you want to do, then you go a little hazy. Yeah. So it's not enough to say, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to be a unicorn. There is something to it. There is an effort. It's not just about waking up one day and saying, I want to be successful. Yeah. There is some effort required in it. And I can assure you all of these success stories that you hear today are about real effort, real technology, real innovation, real IP, real hard work. And anybody who believes that there is a formula minus effort, grit, determination, and hard work, I'm sorry, but don't come to me then.
No, but does it revolve only around the technology? Or
No. Okay, if that was your question, I think that's a good question. Entrepreneurship today is not limited to tech or digital. But it is safe to assume that in pretty much anything that you do, let's assume you're doing construction, you're doing 3D printing, or you're doing additive manufacturing in some small type of construction. There will be a digital element to it. It is a safe assumption today to make, and I say this when I go to colleges and universities and schools, that regardless of what you study, what your passion is, you must have digital skills. And so as an entrepreneur, as a budding entrepreneur, and that is what a lot of what our skilling ecosystem is doing, is to ensure that there is more than a little digital skill that you imbibe or you learn or you are exposed to as you go out and create something in law or construction or agriculture. Look, I believe, for example, the next wave of entrepreneurs are going to be in agri-tech, which are really about, and I've heard tremendous stories of people coming up with really great, brilliant ideas in agriculture. But there is a tech layer to it. There is a tech platform to it, or there's a tech enabler to it. So it's not all of this is not to do with technology, but it is tech-enabled for sure.
Good question. Thank you so much. Yeah, we've got time for one more. I think there was a lady at the back just behind. If you tell us who you are and where you're from as well, please.
Good evening. My name is Atira. I am a public policy professional. I work with Uber.
So my question is, considering tomorrow is International Women's Day, just wanted to understand, currently the percentage of women in the labor force in India is around 20%. It must have declined to a lesser number considering we had 2 years of COVID. But what are the kind of initiatives that are in the pipeline that will promote more women to join the labor force, considering there is a huge skill gap that deters them from joining the labor force?
No, so like I answered in the first question, so first of all, I want to say it from my perspective because I'm not Women and Child Development Minister and I can't tell you about the entire workforce. But I can say this, that we have seen that please sit, that for example, part of our skilling network called the Jan Shikshan Sansthan, which really targets women and rural women, have done remarkably well during COVID. It has created entrepreneurship, micro-entrepreneurship of a scale that we never even imagined before. And I have gone and visited them and I've seen how women have spoken about how they have run their households during COVID because of the skills and the tools that they learned through the JSS. So we are expanding that network. We have 800 odd all over the country and we will do 1,600 of them over the next 2 years. In addition, through a conventional skilling network, we are basically encouraging more and more women participation in hitherto conventionally non-women areas, like I said, plumbing, automotive, security, all of these areas. So women participation is being encouraged. Now, leaving that to one side, and me wearing the other hat, which is the technology hat. In the technology space, the last number from NASSCOM is that about 40 to 42% of the workforce is women. Yeah, so Meenakshi has just corrected me, it's 48, and I will never dare contradict her. Dangerous to contradict Meenakshi ji. So, no, so 48. But again, on the entrepreneurship side, on the startup side, we've seen a slow pickup on women startups and women unicorns. So we are focused on that. We are focused on enabling more and more women to start up. We have a program in the ministry that is going to really target women entrepreneurs, not just in Bengaluru, Hyderabad, Pune, Mumbai, Chennai, but also Meerut, Agra, and tier 2, tier 3 cities. So we believe the talent is there, the aspirations are there, and I'll just end, I know time's up, I see that in red, but I'll just explain one, I'll give you an example. I went to Kashmir as part of a mandate the Prime Minister had given to all of us to go. And I visited as I was a skill minister of Polytechnic. So there's a huge group of students and the students were asking me questions. And somewhere in between, I noticed a group of young girls on the corner, Kashmiri girls, and they said, we want to talk to you. And they turned at me and I said, I was expecting some discussion about terrorism or Pakistan or something like that, but they walked up to me and said, look, if you really are serious about women empowerment, as the Prime Minister says he is, why is it that in my Polytechnic, I don't get courses in computer science and electronics engineering, and I only have civil engineering and mechanical engineering? So that genie is out of the bottle, and I think women and men today are seeking out skills that will put them on the track to more and more opportunity and prosperity.
Another great question then, thank you so much. That's all we've got time for questions, but I must say the number of questions really does reflect, the interest and the skills and the talent needed going forward for the new India Inc. Thank you so much. We do have a couple more panelists coming up just right now, but I just want everyone to give a huge round of applause to the Minister there for being with us here today. Thank you so much. Thank you. If you'd like to join us at the panel, you may, but yes, you may also leave as well, no problem at all.
No, I'm happy. If you call me, I'm happy to
stay. Stay.
Okay.
We'd love your take anyway.
Okay.
You maybe join the conversation from our next two very, very special guests. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Prabjeet Singh, who is the president of Uber for India and South Asia. He's with us today. Great to have you here. Thank you so much. And now please welcome our next guest, Kamal Bali, who is the president and managing director of Volvo Group India. A very warm welcome. Yes, please do take a seat. Well, great to both have you here. It's going to be a good discussion, this one. I'd like to start off with Volvo, actually, if I may, with Kamal Bali. Now, Volvo is very much going through a transformational process with vehicle electrification, and I hear you're sort of venturing sort of, past, beyond cars as well. So how exactly, along with the new India Inc., are you currently reinventing yourselves?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on this show. Let me step back and let you know what Volvo has been doing in India first. Over the last 20 years, we have been serial investors. We have, over the last 3 to 4 years, created the second largest R&D center for Volvo Group in India. And this R&D center is going to drive the transformation in the future of mobility, which means that we are talking of completely autonomous vehicles. All the work is going to be done out of India. Most of the work is going to be done out of India. So, and I think this is also in continuation to what the previous speakers have talked about. I think the talent in India today is, we started because of cost arbitrage, maybe about 10 years ago. But today, it's not because of cost. It's because of talent. And today, out of the $100 billion of R&D stuff which is happening all across the world, $31 billion is happening out of India, 31%. And this is growing at about 12 to 13%. So we're very happy that Indian team, which is about 3,000 people already, and we are going to double them up in the next couple of years, is going to be responsible for transformation of the entire group sitting out of India. So I think that's a huge, huge role. And I think each one of us, all Indians, should be very proud of that fact.
Very proud indeed. And as you said, autonomous vehicles really is going to be the future, isn't it?
Absolutely. Autonomous vehicles is, the future of mobility is in several parts. One is electric, other is different transport concepts, which could be multimodal, interoperable systems. It would be fleet management, cargo management, number of things. And I think it's an interesting game in the next few years.
It really will be. Prabjeet, moving over to Uber. Now, of course, Uber started out as a tech company years ago that's gone global. It's completely exploded. What are you doing to reinvent yourselves at the moment then? How do you stay ahead of the game when you're so far ahead of it?
Look, I love to focus my reinvention on what we're doing in India, because this is where a lot of the reinvention for Uber is happening, not just in terms of what we're doing for the market, but where we are building innovation for the world out of India. I think that there are 3 themes. One is, at the end of the day, this is a technology solution which focuses on utilizing unused assets, at the same time create a livelihood opportunity. We believe we have barely scratched the surface of that in a market like India. There were questions around infrastructure of city of Bangalore. Most urban cities in India are struggling from this. We believe that the future for India involves leapfrogging private vehicle ownership. And we have to play a pivotal role in that. We started off by being a car-focused product, but the reality is majority of India doesn't travel by air-conditioned cars. They travel by 3-wheelers, 2-wheelers, buses. So we are in the process of making that technology relevant for all these modes. There will be a segment which wants to go in a Volvo AC bus, for sure, but majority of them can put the same technology to help buses on city streets of Bangalore. So I think that's one shift. Not many people know. Today, 1 out of 2 trips on the Uber platform in India actually happen on either 3-wheelers or 2-wheelers. And that can become even more bigger over the next few years. The second shift is really around livelihood. I think there was a question earlier around women empowerment, livelihood for women. I do believe, I think just broadly encouraging gig work, and huge kudos to the government of India to bring together Code on Social Security, which gives a first of its kind framework which formalizes gig work. We cannot offer full-time employment in a country of India's size to everyone, but gig work creates that middle path. Imagine that being able to now extend to, that's gender agnostic. I can see a lot more women coming into workforce, and we have a lot more to do around that. And the third, I think, is really around sustainability. India has a chance to leapfrog the dependence on traditional fuel. Obviously, that requires the ecosystem to come together. It's a team sport. So we are pretty much counting on us taking the lead on some of these. And last is, as I said, I think which also was true for what Kamal said, is building in India for the world. Today we have the second largest employee base for Uber outside US sitting in India. I expect that number will only increase. And we are building custom solutions for the world out of India. In fact, we are piloting and testing it in India and then taking it to multiple markets. So a lot more to be done.
Minister Rajiv, what has been the impact then of global tech companies coming into this area, especially just in India in general, and investing heavily and also creating a strong base here? How has that sort of impacted the landscape as well then?
No, it's been it's obviously positive, but like I say, I've said this recently that my ambition and our government's ambition and our Prime Minister's ambition is to do more than that. And I don't mean to be, this shouldn't be misconstrued. What I would like us is India to be less of just being a fuel for global tech companies, but to also lead the global tech movement. So I think, it's clear that you need to have this ecosystem develop. I think companies like Volvo, Uber, and many other companies, Intel, in semiconductor, AMD, are creating the ecosystem where the talent is now is out there, and there's a critical mass. Yeah. Into that mix, when you toss in this desire for entrepreneurship, the capital and the ability and this encouragement by the government to create, to support innovation, you will create, in my opinion, we will see in the next coming years a large number of India origin innovation. So at that point, we'll write thank you notes to Volvo and Uber, and we'll thank them for being here and doing what they did. But look, that's how innovation ecosystems develop, that there are these big prime movers that come into an ecosystem, create that capability, create that knowledge, create that confidence, create the talent, and then it is the government's ambition and vision that we want more and more India origin intellectual property to come from here. And I'm very confident that that's the next wave that we will see.
What's it going to take in order to upskill, reskill, and find the talent that's going to be needed going forward over the next 10 years? Because as both these companies, for example, are going to grow exponentially, so how do we keep up with the pace?
This is like the problem. This is the good problem to have, that we have all of the ingredients for growth. We have all of this interest and investment from global tech majors coming into India. The geopolitical, the changes post-COVID is putting India in the center of, let's say, this opportunity of being a significant player in the trusted global value chains for technology. All of that is playing to the fact that we need more and more people, more and more talent. But that is the good problem to have. But it's a good problem to have if the problem remains for a short while. And if the problem lingers on, then you have the same, where people start looking outside and going to other jurisdictions. We are very, very focused on that. We have invested a lot of capital. We are working in partnership with the private sector. And we are creating more and more of these platforms that address not just skilling, but very, very importantly, as the Prime Minister said repeatedly, reskilling, upskilling, and multiple skilling. And in the tech space, that is really the new normal. You need multiple skills. You need to be completely upskilling and reskilling all the time. And the needs of the tech industry are changing every day as we speak. And so that is a dynamic sort of a machine of churning out talented people that we take very seriously. That goal is very, very important to us.
So despite the tech growth, it's the people element that is the...
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There is a shortfall today, and they all will testify to that. We are... Look, what's happening is the world is now digitizing, and India is becoming the digital partner to the world. And as the world accelerates its digitizing, the demands on Indian companies, and you see NASSCOM recently announced they've done 16% growth year on year on a base of 200 billion. So the world looks at India as a trusted partner for these digital products and solutions. And we just need to make sure more and more of our youngsters are skilled in the skills that the big tech companies want and our entrepreneurs and startups need.
Absolutely. Moving back over to Volvo, to Kamal, in what areas would you say that India, both from the business and regulation perspective, are ahead of the curve, and which areas would you say are lagging behind as well?
Well, I think there are several areas where I think India over the last, if I say, last 3 to 4 years, we have had some interesting regulations. And when it, for instance, on emissions, if you go to emissions, we are almost at par with Europe, with the European Union. We leapfrog from Euro 4 to Euro 6, so which was a big step further. We are now looking at safety and power to weight ratios, which are going to be at par with rest of the world. So I think India is actually really catching up very fast in the last few years when it comes to regulations. But of course, there are areas on safety, which of course we need to do much better. Obviously, it's a huge ecosystem sort of a challenge, which I think now with the Ministry of Road Transport working together on the design of the roads, on the blind spots on the roads, understanding. So there's a big project going on to understand how can we reduce the accidents on the road. So safety measures. So I think what I see is a lot of seriousness, positivism, and urge to get these in place. So we are very gung-ho and very bullish on the way things are happening.
Good news. So we move over back to Uber. Now, as you mentioned, this growing workforce in India, you're also getting various incentives as well to electrify your fleet, is that right? Your fleet. And what are you doing in order to get the sort of right talent you need for expansion as well from this new sector, especially in terms of electrification?
Lara, before I come to electrification, I do want to just pick up to what Kamal was mentioning around. I think I also echo that there's been progress broadly in the ecosystem in creating enabling environment for technology companies to succeed. Shared mobility is an example. The regulatory ecosystem has evolved where now every state and the federal government welcomes shared mobility and the value that brings. But I'll also give you an example in the same coin on things which hold back the full potential. The first is really peer-to-peer transport. Today, when you are in London or Rajiv is in the US, you get a vehicle which is often driven by potentially a homemaker who, between dropping kids to school for 3 hours, is driving. The same asset which they're using for private use on weekends is being put on a shared platform like Uber. We believe India has a chance to leapfrog and take that space. We still have regulatory regimes which were designed for the time when you needed, for example, a separate looking car, which is white in color, has a yellow plate. That was from a time when technology solutions were not there. And today, I would argue, often a poor person has to buy a rich man's asset, which is a car, to be able to then earn a livelihood on Uber platform. There's no reason that should be the case. For a city like Bangalore, there are enough existing vehicles which can be deployed without having to put more cars on the road. Or there are two-wheelers which are available and we are not able to, for the narrow roads of Bangalore, deploy that infrastructure. So I think we have to find ways to bring technology to front and center for some of these solutions, but super encouraged with the way the progress has happened and the dialogues across the board. To your question on electrification, absolutely, we see ourselves as a catalyst in enabling electrification. At the end of the day, it has to make economic sense for somebody who's buying an electric vehicle to be able to justify the expenditure they are making by, say, using it for purposes which are beyond private use. I believe ride-hailing platforms come exactly into that. They will be the early adopters. I think we are working with multiple state governments and the central government to make sure those incentives are directed in the right place. Today, still the cost of the electric vehicle is higher, which creates some challenges upfront. But I'm confident through multiple dialogues that will come through. And I would imagine this can also converge right now. Why should an electric vehicle have a commercial or a private differentiation? We can get each electric vehicle to be utilized a lot more from day one. And maybe that can solve for both peer-to-peer transportation and electrification in a much faster way. I think our commitment to sustainability is absolute.
Yeah, can I just?
Yeah, sure.
Just to corroborate with what he said, we as Volvo, we have taken the pledge to have 40% vehicles which will run on non-fossil fuels by 2030. And by 2040, everything will be carbon neutral by 2040. So that's the kind of this. And on your earlier question on women, we have committed that by 2030, 35% of our workforce will be women.
Very good news indeed.
Even in an automotive company like ours.
Yeah, very good indeed. And some very ambitious targets, but definitely something you can achieve. Very, very interesting indeed. I'm very conscious of the time. I'm going to give the last word to the Minister here. Please complete the sentence. The future of the new India Inc. is?
In one sentence, I don't know, but the future of the new India is endless, limitless. The opportunities are just tremendous in terms of what we want to do and what we can do.
Very well said indeed. Minister, gentlemen, it's been a great pleasure speaking with you all. Thank you so much. We'll see you later then. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's hear it one more time for our panel. A couple of these top videos. There you go. Yeah.
Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman.
So, ladies and gentlemen, just before we wrap up, I thought we'd sit down with some of the other co-hosts as well. Edie and Priyanka. Now, Priyanka, you've been manning the media centre just outside. I hope that you've got all the sound bites.
Womaning the media centre outside.
Sorry, womaning, of course, yeah. The theme of our day today, and very much, I'm sure, of tomorrow. But yes, so tell us a little bit more about what you've been hearing, what your highlights have been, and what has been exciting over the day.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting talking to the panelists after their wonderful panels because I think they're getting a lot out of the panels as well. So some of the feedback that I've been getting and that people are talking about is it's really a nice cross-collaboration between government, policy, tech, entrepreneurship. This is just a one-stop shop almost for all of that to take place. And it's really good to see people's ideas aligning, even though they're coming from diverse backgrounds. And everyone's giving a shout out to all the women over there. So I was really happy with your question. And I think 35% of his company was going to be all women, and that's an automotive industry. So that's really, really impressive and good to hear. So it's really exciting outside to hear the thoughts of the panelists themselves and what they're getting out of the panels as well on a platform like this.
Really interesting. Edie, you've had some very interesting, very lively sessions that last one. It was brilliant, by the way. So what has been exciting for you?
Well, hugely exciting and a lot of energy. I mean, I spent a lot of time thinking about inclusion and right from the morning with the Honorable Minister who was talking about this is a job for all of us, for women and for men, I think is something to really think about. The other issue that came up is that around 50% of the world is online, which means that 50% is still not online yet. And the job of all of us and those who are involved in technology has to be how we can bring that second half of the world there. And I thought that was really interesting when we had the CEO of Unicoin talking about how Bitcoin, crypto has the ability with remittances, with the unbanked. Of course, to help them, they have to have a smart device. The same thing from the CEO of Dukan, working with small vendors. The price of getting an online business for just a fraction of the cost of competitors, incredibly helpful. Still need a smart device, right? So there's a lot about the hardware as well as the software, which comes into this idea of inclusion. For me personally, I'm from California, I'm from the Bay Area, the original Silicon Valley, and I thought it was really interesting, Mohandas Pai, saying that India is open source, that creativity really comes from the heart of the Indian culture, something that the hippies had to teach us in the Bay Area. One controversial thing I heard was about the price of software engineers. One of the things that really helps startups, scale-ups, unicorns now in India is that something that the fees, that their salaries may go beyond what's so affordable now. Super excited about our conversation with the tech unicorns tomorrow here on stage after I speak with the Honorable Finance Minister to see what they have to say. And of course, it's International Women's Day, so we'll be celebrating that all day and probably the rest of the year.
And also, now tomorrow, yes, we've got a huge number of unicorns that are actually going to be joining us tomorrow as well, which is going to be very exciting indeed.
I think about a third of India's unicorns will be here.
In this very room. So I'm hoping you can all join us again tomorrow. Any final comments before we wrap up?
I think we're going to be able to have some beverages outside, so join us.
Yeah, and then please do talk to our virtual audience out there. There's a lot of people watching virtually all over the world. That is what the pop-up with Priyanka is outside. So we'd love to talk to you as you are outside.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you so much once again for joining us, and we'll see you later. Thank you so much.
See you tomorrow.
There is a life designed for the kings. A life from the time we only know legends of. A time when palaces weren't built on reason, but sculpted on a whim. When luxury wasn't manufactured for the few, it was handcrafted for the one. A time when every inch was carved and sewn to unravel the senses. Hear suites of the world's most beautiful Maharanis and Maharajas tell untold tales of their life and time. Welcome to the living palaces of Taj. Welcome to luxury crafted by time. Wander through stories of love and valor, and let your discerning mind sail across 4 centuries, where a dinner seems to be slow cooked for hundreds of years. Let your soul be spellbound by a spiritual days. Feast where praises echo effortlessly from one end to the other. Can you hear me over there? Your every moment is set in traditions as old as time. And many lifetimes seem to be rolled into this one. As your stay gracefully strolls along, you'll find that time has lost its effect on you. Here, yesterday is today, is tomorrow. The living palaces of Taj. Luxury crafted by time.